And yes, you could do this abstractly, but you could also do this physically as well with people that have been infected with leftoidism or some type of maniac sociology or psychology that was based on nothing, war time actors that put all of these bad ideas into distribution and mainstream them, mainline them. Why do we have a fentanyl problem? Well, it's just changing forms and conditions, bad leadership. Well, we've had that for several decades now in the West, so chalk it up to that. But you can eject people like that. People are now on online forums. That's what moderation is for. And if moderation tolerates them, then the moderation is crap. And then the venue is crap. And then you can also avoid that venue. Walk into a bar, it's nothing but bandits. That would be the last time you enter it. But let's not say a bar, you walk into a library, right? Or a museum, it's trash. Because today, or a church, or even some type of group, any type of group, spiritual group, tolerates crazy people, it's not a good group. Now you might say, well, there's only 2 or 3 of them. Well, that's too much in my book. And if I am in charge of any type of venue, you best believe it's a one and done type of policy. Or it'll be an it will be a taking of aside and saying, don't do that again. And if they do, they're gone. That's it. There's no... It depends if the person is worth chiding or not. A lot of these shticks that these social terrorists use, they're very blatant, very obvious to anyone that knows what's going on. And if they're playing the oblivious card, then they really think they can snow you. And that's really not a good place for a person to be, is it? Or someone worthy of your company or other venerables. So how venerable is a person that tolerates people like that play games like that or pretend not to know that these terrible things have been launched in our public spaces? Not very venerable or not venerable at all, so that's just the way it is. So there's a correlation between thinking and also association with thoughts and with people that have thoughts, bad thoughts or good thoughts, good behavior or bad behavior. So keep that congruence alive. Someone wrote in and asked recently, are you, or do you consider yourself a conservative? Thank you. I mean, again, Namarupa, names and labels. Like, what? Conservative is a word that has annoyed me for a long time. Ever since it was dished up as fake opposition to the radical class. Like, oh, we're conserving nice things in a little jar of marmalade. But yeah, we're just going to conserve it like the elephants in Namibia. Meanwhile, like every year they get slaughtered. So we can already see, like, in 10 years there will be none left. But yeah, I'm going to conserve until I get to watch all those things die out. And then what am I? I'm some type of relic. So no, I am, I don't know what you would want to call me. See, any name or label you put to it, there's going to be some spin on it. And some type of a flip on it. Because right now, we just have people taking on appearances just for the sake of doing that. Like, that's sort of what acting is. And we have, I mean, one of the terms I coined was POID, political operator in disguise. These are just people, radical class people, which of course can be people that are affiliated with shakedown operations like banking or the energy sector, or supposedly serious people that rely on the political system being defunct and the culture being defunct as a subset of political culture, so that they can just make off with all the money and have impunity in the courts, such as not having antitrust laws enforced and other things that make sense for the economy. And the majority of people, wouldn't you believe it? Monopolists don't like representative democracy, so they not only have their candidates in there, their proxies, but they also have a sabotage campaign, a whole culture of poids, or poidery is another term. Put my trademark on that one, poidery. So that nothing gets done. Everything devolves into a shouting match. It's just sound bites. Nothing gets done. They make off with the cash, and they have a big laugh about it. It's like every election cycle. They get sort of worked up about it, but then who's going to win? Is it the fake opposition this time, or is it the radical class lunatic that is essentially a subversive out in the open, that is openly demoralizing the populace as a symbol of the defunctness of the system? Is it one of those? Because we just had one of those. Now are we going to get to the other side now? And now who's not involved in the conversation? Well, that would be the real political or cultural people, because they're excluded, completely iced out, pretends like they don't exist, or undermined at every opportunity. They have some supporters sending them some donations. Well, let's make sure that we've picked something out that we don't like, and get them canceled as haters. Get a Prigozhinist team of lawyers working, for $100,000 a week to make some voice in the wilderness go away, because that's essentially what they've done since like 1980. So we've got 1980, 1990, 2000, 2010, 50 years. Whoa! I mean, these people have been in this for a long time. Funded by the Sino-Soviets, so if you want to, or their fellow travelers, of which there has been very, 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 very many of them, so that now they represent the monopoly. They're the cultural, hegemonic, institutional elephant in the room that nobody can push out, because they've jammed themselves into every institution and occupied it, keeping all good people out to more or less. I mean, they might have 5% of talented people, making their coffee for them or something, that they, screw off and screw up. But it's a 95% kind of decapitatory kind of situation. You would say, oh, well, it couldn't happen. Well, again, think of Czechoslovakia in the 70s, Poland in the 80s, right? Baltic states in the 90s. These were places with immense amounts of talented, creative, great people. Their culture from those times essentially doesn't exist. It's like you try to look at it, nothing. They didn't promote any real people. They just promoted people that were in the political racket, like the people that would play ball with the people in politics. Which, just think how many people that would be, especially with such a despicable kind of politics that they had at the time. So, the bottom feeders, opportunists, people that thought themselves more talented than they were, kind of people that would have never have amounted to anything without their political patronage. So that's essentially what oligarchic tyrannies and despotic systems have. in the form of the arts. And that's what we have today. So, am I a conservative? I don't know. I definitely respect real conservatives that really curate their lives so that it's not filled with toxic BS. But that's really not enough. You need to be a little bit more forward thinking, and also a little bit more radical in your approach. Like, well, for example, the church was an institution that was conservative. Now it's flipped. Are you going to stay on the side of a flipped church, a flipped institution? Or do you just have to admit defeat in certain areas and say, well, that at this time from a historical lens, it was defuncted using these insidious methods that have been established by other historians, right, in other places. And then we just entered a period of, subversion. So that's it. Like, okay, 5, 10, 15, how many years will this last? 30 years, 40, 50? But that doesn't mean like the Church of Benedict is something I'm going to call into question. I'm just going to see that as a model that could be reinstituted with the right people. But it's not being done today for political reasons, right? And the economy is political, right? The sociology is political, anthropology is political, history is political, everything's political thanks to these people. So before that all gets sorted out, I guess I'm not, in the basket of fake conservatism or defunct conservatism. And also, my conservatism goes back to Jambujita, so we're not just talking like the last 100 years of conservatism. We're talking like since the beginning of human civilization kind of conservatism. So, where are your parameters? But yeah, now in the context of this Ukrainian war, you can see, because it's sort of a unique issue, you can see the entire Russian disinformation and Chinese apparat at work, just getting into every issue, making things contentious, trying to create issues where there are none, taking talking heads that are labeled conservative and then just have them taking positions straight out of their foreign intelligence departments to appear to be native and conservative. And then the people lapping it up like Rush Limbaugh is like, I'm a smart person because I keep informed on the news, and these people, they're so smart, and I listen to them and I have their attitude, and of course we should just throw Ukraine to the dogs. It's a loser. Look how much money we paid. These people didn't pay nothing. Like, they probably didn't even pay any taxes. These are people didn't pay a cent. Don't understand that wars can have major negative downstream consequences, and it's not about a price tag. And things like that. Like, what was George Washington talking about? Well, we spent $50 on some musket balls last week. I don't know where this thing's going. Was that his type of attitude? All of a sudden you got these fiscal conservatives. Like, we got to cut this. Well, look, cut out any leftoidists or institutions that have been leftoided. But don't replace it with a fake right or fake nationalist. Like, again, AfD people, this is this German, supposed conservative party in Germany. Everybody wants democracy to work. But they've cored out. They haven't left any conservatives left on the right. So essentially they're the, radical communists, sort of oligarchic left. Like I said, it's oligarchic left, which is what the Soviet Union sort of morphed into. Authoritarian left, there you go. They're authoritarian left. And then you've got the social democrats, the wishy-washy utopianist left. And there's nobody on the right. There is absolutely no one, despite a disinformational wing saying, oh, these are far-right people. They're not far-right. They're all far-left. Historically, they're far-left. Historically, it's a totalitarianism that started, we'll say, in 1994. And just sort of, faded into the monstrosity that it is today, which is there's no room for normal people in politics. It's a monopoly. And you're either on board or you're not in at all. And if they call themselves conservative, well, they say they're conservative, so obviously they're conservative, so you must think they're conservative, but that Overton window, again, is in play. These are psychological terrorists. These are Machiavellian, psychopathic, narcissistic elements involved in wealth guarding and power politics. And they don't like real opposition. But they do like the appearances of that. So real people, it's not follow the leader time. But your leaders, they should not be like what I just described. Not that type of conservative. Somebody has a little bit more up there, but doesn't sound like a conservative, but isn't one, because they're big into that side of the business. But again, how many people can tell a real Gucci bag from a counterfeit one? You could have a camera set up. You could say, oh, I think I'm really into this, right? Now, forget about normal people. Just talk about the experts. All right, let's get somebody who thinks they're an expert, right? Like a prosumer kind of person. Put two bags on the table, have a camera rolling. One's fake, one's real. And then see how many of them get it right. My guess is it's going to be an 80-20 split. 20% will get it right, 80% won't. Or it'll be 50-50. And that's what you're looking at in the form of political opinions, like onions. They make you cry. And again, we got women in the equation. As long as you cry and you make a big scene about something, you really care about it, then that's more convincing than any type of logical argument. Like, you have to fight a war because otherwise you're all going to die. No, that's not true. I don't believe it. You see? So, the West, we do need to up our game a little bit, and it's not going the way of subversion, inversion, and lunacy, but there are big forces allied against that. And they're working every day, 12-hour shifts, right? 2 and 2. 12-hour on, 12-hour off, teams of thousands of disinformationists that have access to our public forums at this time in the form of water armies, ideologues, proxies, fakers of all kinds. So this is a historical moment. Like I said, we're 30 years into an informational environment like this. Will it end sometime soon? I hope so. Maybe it ended yesterday. Nobody told me. But there is a way forward. It's just not with a bunch of fakers and proxies. So people, up your counterfeit Gucci game. Because just people that talk the walk or talk the talk and don't walk the walk, or have some marketing background or something or other, they're just living from the air. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Maybe they're not the big thinkers that you think they are. Maybe not. But the people that are out there have been doing this for years, haven't been paid a cent. Maybe those are the people you should start getting behind. Because the hour is late in the day. Things are not going to get better with the circus that they're providing. And what type of circus? Well, look, the Oscars, the wokery of the Oscars. You can't make a movie without some kind of just terrible sabotage of aesthetic or artistic principles. That's what they've imposed on the culture. So these are cultural war criminals. They're organized. They think themselves to be hegemonic, or they work towards that. And the detrimental effect that they have on millions of people is unquantifiable. So you think this is just fun and games? It really isn't. Now, some people are waking up to that fact, but it's a little bit more than knowing these things that's required at this point to shut these things down. Now, if it happens in my lifetime, great. If it takes the next generation to do it, that's just what this battle took. But one day this will get turned around, and these people will be put down in the history books for the criminals and malign influence that they are and represent and represented up until now to create these catastrophic conditions that many of us have encountered or encounter on a daily basis, and possibly could get much worse going forward, because what kind of management is that? Decline management? That's what our enemies would have for us. That's what they sponsored. That's who they put above us to accomplish that goal. Despite them saying, no, we're not doing that, we're not doing that. Of course they're doing that. These type of programmatic sabotage-like actions and decisions they've been made all around the globe by similar people, and not because they thought it was the right decision. Somebody put them up to it. It's discernible, right? Take out this little tacks with the threads and the photos and start putting them on your cork board, because they do line up. These people are not original. They're hacks. And they're in Australia, they're in UK, they're in Germany, they're in the US, right? But they're not in commie countries where one partition. Don't have people like that. But they pay people like that outside their system. Isn't that funny? So who's letting them pay these people, and who's letting them organize, and who's letting them get set up and piss in all of our faces? Are they your friends? Are those stinkers? Are those oligarchs worth it? Oligarchs and billionaires, are they really worth it? Not even kings and queens or anybody that could be considered an aristocracy for any reason. Just a bunch of maniacal people, essentially. They're worth it. They're worth your whole country, your whole history, your whole future, your whole community, your whole region, your whole state. Is that it? They're worth it? They think so. Is that true? So start pulling the plugs on these people. They order a delivery, make sure it doesn't show up, right? They push a button, it doesn't work. They say something and it doesn't check out, their career is done. Their political career is over. And so on and so forth. A little less tolerance with charlatanism. I think that's what's going to happen going forward. It's not because people want to be mean. It's because it's what you have to do to shut down operations and people like this, unscrupulous people like this. Because they got piss-making on infinity mode. They're piss-making, like I said, 30 years, it's been piss directly in the face of the public. The statistics prove it. So how much air do they got left in their tank? If they got 20%, like I said, turn the valve so that it runs out faster. Because we don't got time to lose. Another year of this kind of cultural tyranny is a completely wasted and trashed year. And they're planning on doing it, like I said, not just this year, but for as long as they can. So the less air they got, the less time they have in the spotlight, the better for everyone. And yeah, fake conservatism is the new word you need to be thinking about. Is this a counterfeit bag? Before I thought all the bags, everybody that labeled themselves that had to be that. But now I know that 80% of counterfeits are in circulation. So now I'm going to check these little points like background checks and double checking, and who are they affiliated with, who are their friends again, and does this make sense and this doesn't make sense. What does the threading look like? Is the is the label the right design? Is it made of the right materials? And so on and so forth in a counterfeit kind of situation. That's what people need to do. And if it comes up screwy, you're just going to have to assume it's fake and not assume that it's not fake, as in times when counterfeit bags were not in circulation like they are today. So thank you very much. See that coffee light? Hit it right now. And remember, #mobilize. There is no way this train is going to get turned around on one election. And let's all hope Trump's going to get rid of 80% of the BS, but he's not going to get anywhere near to 100%. So brace yourselves, people. This is not over, and it might seem to be getting better, but that might just be appearances. Strap yourself in for the long haul, because, like I said, the 30 years of infamy I've lived through, that could very well extend into the next 30 years. So if you don't have that type of mindset, don't even think about conservative this or conservative that. But going back to the Oscars for a second, these are objectively crap films. But look at the psychology. So they have a bunch of people that are considered to be prominent. These are also people that were picked up off the street, that did the couch, what do they call it? The couch audition for some schlubby people. Yeah, they dress themselves up in tuxedos and clap each other for horrible films. Objectively, despicably horrible, disgusting, and boring and ugly films. They say in a monopolistic way that they're the best in the world and give themselves awards. So if you see the political equivalent to that, it's really close. And just look at them. Look at how much effort goes in that. Look at the lights, the cameras. Tally up how much that costs and then how much you make in a year doing something, hopefully even remotely productive, even if it isn't. How about being a meditator? Spiritual practitioner. Way better than that. How much did it cost you versus how much one of these events cost? So is Jambujita spicy? I'd say so. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's outrageous. It's shocking, but there it is. And that's how history is going to, like I said, this stuff will be digitally compartmentalized in some type of department of terrorism. But in this day, they are out loud. They have this method down. They're doing the little shimmy, the shimmy dance. But if you can see it, there it is. There's the Mora-minded, Mora-inspired oligarchic lunatics that are so high on their own supply that they don't even feel a need to hide themselves. So yeah, this one, like I said, take a look, save it. If you don't want to watch it all at once, I'm not forcing anyone to watch this crap at all. I'm not recommending it. I don't think many people have the stomach for it. But it's about as bad as it's ever been, hasn't it? Coming back to Jambujita for a moment, history is long. And many periods and epochs were utterly terrible, and we're sort of living in one. It's a time of psychosociological, economic, and political warfare, which has almost a Byzantine-like character to it. And that was facilitated by a bunch of criminals and a bunch of foreign adversaries. And we're living through it. This is it. You open the door, Jambujita, you don't know what you're going to witness in the form of one outrage or atrocity or another. And that's just the way it is. This is this time. That's how it will be defined by civilized people in the future. And there's people that made it happen. There were the people that let it happen. And then there's the victims and the people that just have to get through it, just like any other time in Jambujita. So, don't get yourselves down. There's a lot of practice. There's a lot of other ways of looking at things. There's ways of compartmentalizing things. There's ways of moving to less bad places. How about raising your standards, not associating with people that are infected with these psychological pathogens, and so on and so forth. You don't have to think of that as being a precursor of loneliness. No, it's just the beginning of something new. So turn the page on it. Like I said, during COVID-19, it was sort of a similar situation. Tyrannical sadism everywhere. People live their lives anyway. And this is just a different form, a different expression of it. There's limited possibilities to do this and that, but then there's other possibilities to do that and this. So keep it rolling, people. This is not the final destination of our souls. This bardo, it was meant to be purgatorial. But don't overdo it. Don't overemphasize the bad things. Don't let your directionality be captured by these people, because that's what they want. They also want the attention, right? They want that engagement. They want you to be aggravated. They want you to be demoralized. They want you to be angry. They want you to be connected that way. So don't do that. Now, I do that to a certain extent, but I do that to get distance, right? To see it for what it is and to drop it. This is a sort of catharsis for me. But don't let yourself get worked up and obsessed with these bad factors. It's like getting obsessed with gonorrhea. Why? I just wanted to go into this place and just bang some people and not have any consequences. No, this place has all different types of terrible people in it. And why are they terrible? Well, they do terrible things. And directing an entire movie industry that was once great is probably one of the most terrible crimes that has ever been committed, at least in this time, in this place that we know about. And there it is, live on TV. So, it's... you can see it, like I said, with a comedic lens, because these people really are the dunces of history. Can you imagine just the pure shame of being at one of those events and having people clap at you when that's what they're producing, and it's verifiable that they've set down these guidelines that are total and utter crap? They get that pinned to them, to their resume. Ooh. That's not a fame anybody should ever want for themselves. Is that not so? Change the channel of your mind. Change the channel of your soul. Change your view if it is wrong view. Change it back to right view. And develop techniques that allow you to do that without self, without friction, without difficulty. And do it again and again and again and again. Early morning, that's a great time to change the channel of your mind. Click, Take that remote control. Where was it? Is it in the couch, in between the couch cushions? You might have to look for it a little bit. You have to put in some right effort. And then you find it. Oh, there it is. It was in my coat pocket. Why would I put it there? I completely forgot. And then click. And then you'll see that just like in real life, the channels aren't all that great, are they? So click, 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 click. Get in the habit of just clicking through the channels until you might even get one that just has pure static on it. You can turn the volume down and just watch the little ants crawl across the digital ants crawl across the screen. That makes about as much sense as Mara Mind in Mara's Kingdom, but it's aesthetically more neutral, isn't it? You've jammed the signal. And that's fine, right? Space out a little bit. Relax, let go of the attachments. It's attachments that cause sufferings. Fill in your variables. It's true. Am I attached to that outcome, this person, place, or thing? Yes? Well, look at that conduit of suffering. How big is that conduit? How big is the gauge of that wire? How much electricity is running? Are you frying yourself? Like, can you imagine yourself like some dummy on the Crypt Creeper show holding on to electrical wires where that arc's going and you're holding on to both ends and bzzz, and your hair is standing on end and smoking? Because that's what people can do in Jambujita and Samsara and this realm. That's what they do. It's not all that surprising, all that energy flowing through their mind with Mara mind, with unskillful practice. So I like electricians. Electricians are very careful. They're very knowledgeable about voltage, conductivity, and equipment. A lot of their equipment, you wouldn't think of it, but they're wearing rubber-soled shoes that are insulated. Look like normal shoes. They're not normal shoes. They're professional shoes. They're tools. They're special tools. They're non-conductive tools. They're electrician's tools. They're not the carpenter's tools. Carpenter is not dealing with electricity unless it's a mistake. Although there's some crossover with tools, some modern tools are non-conductive just because of the reason that people do come into contact with electricity from time to time, even if they're not really meant to. It's just a nice feature to have. Saves people's lives, especially unskillful ones that might have a mistake. It slips, the screwdriver slips in right into the junction box, and then all the sparks start flying, but the charge didn't go through the handle because the handle's non-conductive. Isn't that a miracle? So you should be prepared and knowledgeable about not transferring unnecessary suffering through the conductivity of your soul, your mind, your body. Disconnected, let those wires drop. One wire, then the next. And then stay away from the junction box. You're not skillful enough. There's no skill in electrocuting yourself. Every electrician will tell you that. From the journeyman electrician to the top electrician getting electrocuted, there's no skill in that. Not getting electrocuted, that's the skill. And it doesn't matter how much voltage you're dealing with. And some electricians, they deal with tremendous amounts of voltage to turn them to ash in minutes. But how is it that they survive? Is it skill? Do you have that skill? No? Well, then admit it and work on that. You're not going to get to the level of a master electrician, but on human terms, psychological terms, you're not going to get there immediately either, but you can take those baby steps by acknowledging the fundamental principles that I just outlined and implementing them, putting them into practice. Ground yourself. How about this other one? They ground themselves, or they ground their tools. So when the electricity hits them, they know it's going to hit them, or there's a possibility of it. It goes to the safe place. It goes to the universe. Goes to the earth. Doesn't go through them. Lots of different techniques. There's also ways of increasing your safety, like not working in dangerous places. Refusing. I've seen professionals refuse jobs right in front of me. No, I'm not touching that. It's not worth it to me. I don't care how much you're paying, and goodbye. Well, your dignity, civility, and respect should all be things that are non-negotiable. Your morality should be non-negotiable, because you know there's a causal relationship. You break your immoral principles, you're opening yourself up to unlimited amounts of voltage. The punishment does not fit the crime according to you. That's all rule breakers don't think they should spend their life in prison. But many of them end up doing that. Or worse, a prison of the mind, a guilty conscience. Oh, I'll never feel guilty about that. This person doesn't bother me. And then years and years and years and years and years and years later, they're still in the prison of regret. And then into the bardos with it too. Oh, surely when I die, when I cease consciousness, all these regrets will go away. That's a very naive conceit, isn't it? That annihilationists have known and despised in the 5th century BC as pseudo-intellectuals. Today, they reign supreme, piggybacking off of scientific discoveries that they had nothing to do with. It's flabbergasting, but Jambujita and Samsara wasn't meant to be straightforward. And the appearance of credibility is not the same thing as the real thing, is it? So pick up that remote control of your mind. Have it at the ready. Know where it is. Know where to find it. If you don't have it, look for it. Change the channel of your mind. Perhaps the new 2 t-shirt projects. T-shirt 1, I watch cartoons. And t-shirt 2, a permanent disaster. I might sign both of them in order to get the merch sales up so I can maybe fund this orphanage project I'm working on. But it's only if people show enough interest with the coffee link. So that link's available right now, so go ahead and hit that while you still can. Maybe we'll get these other things off the ground in Jambujita. Someone wrote in, it was like, well, I know you really don't like talking about politics, but could you say a few more words? Thank you. Well, yeah, the voting system, voter eligibility has to be increased. The voting system needs to be updated. We need more public participation. in fielding candidates. Like I said, there should be at least 5 candidates for positions, and there should be a special committee to recognize fraud and or proxies and or organized crime, and to identify and not just exclude them, but possibly give them a charge if it turns out they're shady as hell. Like, what do we have right now? The entire Democratic Party has become the party of Andrew Jackson, by the way. So that should be restored. I mean, if I have to run on the Democratic ticket without the Democratic Party, the new Democratic Party, then that's what just needs to be done. But it shouldn't be up to one man. Anyway, the voting system, it's all about getting better candidates and then making sure the better candidates are actually voted in by a public that's also qualified to vote. Like, there should be a basic test. And this test should include ideological questions. And if it comes out these people have been brain dunked by sociological terrorism, we don't need them voting in our executive system. We don't. These people are essentially cancer. Their ideas are cancerous. They lead to losing wars, losing economies, losing culture. That's it. It's not personal at all. And these questions can be abstract, and if the people answer on them in such a way. Now, of course, because they're a malicious kind of element, many of them will try to game the system, but these questions should be updated frequently and randomized. And if their total score is under like 70% of good citizen, they don't get to vote or something like that. There has to be some type of qualification for voting. I'm also, for example, the male vote, we can reduce that to 16. I think men in any country, even before they're able to serve in the military, should start paying attention to politics. And there should be more outlets. Again, the whole free press needs to be redone. All companies that have been involved in this disinformation era should be immediately redone. They're going to have to go into the national interest, and everything's going to have to get sorted out. The people that have been involved in disinformation, they should get a 20-year charge. Anybody involved. On the ownership level, life in prison. Management level, 20 years. And useful idiots, depending on what they did and how they came across, 5 to 10, let's say 3 to 10 years in prison. This includes making horrendous films that are of an ideological nature that has been identified to be destructive, based on destructive sociological, i.e. Warlike actions, sociological principles that are warlike, destructive. So if I haven't conveyed how much I don't care about the luxury class, I think there's even more things. See, we have to reform Wall Street. Wall Street itself was a great idea. You can buy into a company, the company gets capital, and the people get dividends that buy into the company. Great idea. What's happened? Well, look at these crappy companies like BlackRock and Goldman Sachs and these other, also banks. We need to do the banks, but sticking to Wall Street, it can be done right. It needs to be completely reset. And if it turns out that these companies, like the ones I mentioned, were involved in basically laundering hostile global interest into our economy, which is also discernible because where does the money go? Where are they paying their dividends out? If it turns out to be a hostile country and the company that brokered that we're making money off of that laundering operation, everybody in management, life in prison, including, and the owners, if there's any, all management, upper management, life in prison. Lower management, maybe 5 to 10 years. And useful idiots, maybe 1 to 3. And we got to restart. So the basic concept's good. We need companies that have clear guidelines that they will not be laundering or accepting money from hostile foreign entities or people. And there will be a lot more oversight as far as that's concerned, which brings us back to banking. In banking, same rules need to apply. Any banks that have been laundering hostile capital into this country and have been exerting a negative influence on it, life in prison for all owners and managers, and of course all funds, anything they have, anything that can be traced to them, impounded. Not a cent of profit should be had from those types of warlike actions, treasonous warlike actions with a track record of destruction that would make Genghis Khan look like a beginner. It's just that with their disinformation campaigns, all those things get brushed under the rug. Which brings me back, political imposterism. If it comes out that if there's political proxy, if it's determined that there's a political proxy or somebody who was working, like Menendez, death sentence for treason. There you go. You're frying people for murder, but you're not frying politicians working for hostile foreign elements. That's unacceptable. These political proxies, and how about this? There's no statute of limitations. It comes out that they were on somebody else's payroll, they get the electric chair. Because we really do need to turn the political culture around, to turn the country around. But these institutional changes, yeah, they're going to happen if the country's going to survive and thrive. And if they don't, it's a major oversight. It's a red flag to the constituents that something's wrong. Your political leaders are lacking the political will to make the right decisions for the country. Huh? So what you're looking at is people involved in illicit crimes against the entire nation, its entire future and its entire past. So what do you do with people like that think they're above the law? Well, I'll let everybody else decide how to do it that way, because doing it the better way is great when it's possible. But if it's made impossible, there's no other way, is there? So they've been playing these games, like I said, last 30 years. It's been a disaster. For us and all of our true friends, it's been a disaster for them too. And our true friends can also learn from what we do right, and they can implement that amongst themselves, and they can have massive improvements based on that. But we're expected to show the way in the free world, and we just haven't been doing that. And these are the areas where we haven't been doing that. But we can start doing that again. Like I said, Trump, it's 50-50. In my opinion, he's center-left. The problem is our framing is so radical left, he is made out to be far left. Or far right. He's not. He's center-left. There is no right at this point. But what I just mentioned, that's right, but it's not far right. It's just right as far as right policy. So you want to put a label on it like Marxist stooges do and play that game. I would advise against it. It's just hard decision making that makes sense. So where do you want to put that? The hard decisions that are made to save a company that then in 3 years becomes worth $100 billion, they might have seemed bad at the time, but they weren't, were they? Just like a captain, hey, we got to throw this cargo overboard, we're not going to make it otherwise. That seems terrible. That seems counterintuitive. But we're in a life or death situation here, and these people, they're using psychological warfare, sociological warfare, economic warfare. And hybrid warfare, right? That all that fentanyl, that is hybrid war, and the deaths are black and white on paper. In fact, the deaths are underreported. These are the people that let that happen. So they profited off of that. What did they get? $10 a head, 50 cents. So yeah, coming back to Wall Street. Good idea, just bad management and bad ownership at this time. Brokering for hostile foreign interests is a crime. It's illicit right now. As soon as we get in, that bill's going to get passed, and those people better run. Because if they don't, they're going to get what's coming to them. And now everybody knows what's coming to them. And they deserve it. Don't feel sorry for any one of these misguided people. They could have done anything else with their lives. They chose to do this. So, yeah, they are guilty. And they did take a fraction of what we lost. Like these pikers might have earned a fraction of percent off of transactions, which cost us untold trillions of dollars. So their economic model is retarded, just like their moral compass. So by reestablishing these rules, we're reestablishing right order. Which brings me also back to the courts. The courts, everybody gets put under review. What did they decide? What didn't they? The whole culture of the courts is going to change. We're going to automate a lot of the legal shenanigans. And we're going to have programmers that look into that and an advisory board. And if there's also going to be an appeals component to it. But if we notice any type of abuse or people trying to game the system, those people will be charged so fast their heads will spin. And they will be put into prison. And the prison systems, they're going to be put under review too. Anybody who's been running these damn prisons, any type of drugs in these prisons, any type of favoritism in these prisons, any type of gangs in these prisons, that they will go to jail too. Also, prison system, is it a rehabilitation? What are these suckers doing? Sitting on their butts. They can get put to work doing some type of national efforts. If we need to build railroads, that's what they'll be doing. Anything that involves hard labor, so that we're not putting up with people lifting weights for nothing. And it's going to be a much lower population. And the charges, they're going to be correct. You do the crime, you will do the time. I don't care if it's shoplifting, you will do the time. And murder, like I said, I don't know. It's going to be a case-by-case basis. If the person is a lunatic, that's it. It's a wrap. If the person is young, made a mistake, it was something like manslaughter, or they lost it, makes a compelling case that it was a mistake, okay, that's a different story. But how many of those cases will there be? Maybe 50-50, less? 60-40, 80-20 against. We are not coddling criminals. We're not overgoing into empathy or understanding criminals. But of course, we're not going to be draconian either. There's got to be a balance between the two. But we will speed up these court decisions. We will cut down on any type of ambulance chasing, any type of exploitation of the system, any type of favoritism. We will stamp it out mercilessly. We will go after these people like nobody's business, because this is really one of the places people didn't think it would start, but that's where it started. That's where the nomenclatura gets their foot in the door. Then it goes on to politics, then it goes on to business, then they have their little oligarchy like Venezuela. 95.5 society, no Courts worth a damn. Business is all insider trading, and the people live hand to mouth. That's what they That's what they prefer. Versus what I just proposed, which is a lot more work, by the way, and a lot less reward for the people who put in the work. But that's exactly why you should be voting for them and not their side, their proxies, their buttered up faces, butts that cost nothing but aggravation and disgrace in the long run. So yeah, the whole tenor of the political system, it's changed. So there was before when nothing worked and these people nearly pulled off a coup and are sitting in the wings like pigeons waiting for the next thing to fall into their laps. And then there's this time where that is extinct, even if it hasn't manifested itself yet. So yeah, it's mobilized time. It's the mobilized party. It's the wake-up call. It's the plan. It's the way forward. And we're going to leave all that crap in the past. You want a golden age? This is how we do it. You got to make some cuts. And you got to rebuild, but in the right way. And we have a structural problem. We're not getting the leadership we should be getting. We're not getting the vetting we should be getting. We're not getting the economy we should be getting. We're not getting the innovation we should be getting. We're not getting the good relations between men and women and other parties that we should be getting, because these people are into jamming up relationships no matter what they are. How about this? Jam up the relationship with the American Indians. Jam up the relationships with Polynesians. Jam up the relationships with Filipinos. If they can do it, they'll do it. Then they're the brokers of outrage, right? Don't accept that. Now, on the other hand, I'm not for some kind of multicultural empire. I'm for clear divisions and a lot of respect, but not some kind of non-workable, wonky, pseudo-moral sociology that is nothing but a war, a crime, atrocity level of bamboozling, which is what we've had up until now. So if you're on board with civility, dignity, and respect, it shall be returned to you. That's what reciprocity is. But if you're not, you're just some faker, you're some outrageous, you're somebody a finger pointer based on many cases, alternative history, you're out. You will be recognized. You will be tarred and feathered. And rightfully so, because we do not need people causing problems where there should be no problems in the first place. This world is not perfect. Many decisions were made without much forethought or afterthought. Many things have gone wrong, but a working political system comes to a pretty immediate fair decisions, but not perfect decisions about questions like this, and the people should respect it, and if they don't, well, how respectable are they then? They want to claim to be respectable and then badmouth people trying to save or right the ship. Take a look at them. I like the example of the Bounty, right? Mutiny on the Bounty. Just imagine what type of cutthroats and weirdos were on that ship. Did they make it better for themselves ultimately with their hijack, or did they end up screwing themselves in the end? Which is predictable, but not to people who think they know everything better, but don't. That's not the kind of people the party is going to attract or entertain, and it's not people they're going to even consider to be the opposition. These people are in outer space. I was watching the other day's comedy routine, take a break. Watching the other day, somebody, this UFO thing is a disinformation campaign, okay? Look, can we say it's not, there's no UFOs? We're not going to say with 100% there aren't any, but these people have doubled and tripled and quadrupled down. And it's a disinformation campaign. It's a psychological funnel for dummies that get radicalized on the UFO issue. And if they can do it with that, they can do it with anything. So if you've been radicalized, step back from that cliff of lunacy, because we don't need people believing in reptiles or reptilians. We don't need people believing in fantasy fiction. We don't need people pointing fingers and making crazy statements, because that is over too. That is not going to be tolerated in any kind of respectable society going forward. But yeah, it is understandable how people are driven off the rails with this crazy crap when they have nothing but crazy crap masquerading as information in this time. So a little bit of compassion, but that's it. For the professional disinformationalists that are off the rails on this UFO crap, 3-5 years in prison, depending on how crazy they go with it or how many people they ripped off. The public forum is not there for crazy people. The public forum is for the public. It's like a public library. The public library is not there for bums. Now, a bum that knows how to present himself and act might be able to read a book or two in peace. But if he comes in like a bum, starts throwing up and attacking the patrons, he's not coming back in. And it's the same way with these people and their dumb ideas. A lot of these ideas, they can just be categorized and that's it. They don't get a platform in the forum. Because we have no time for nonsense. We spent way too many years with nonsense. These people, they creeped up on us and then presented themselves as a fait accompli, like, yeah, this is just the way it is now. So the weeders and weeding, that's not to be tolerated now or in the future. That time is over. And the new weeders, they need to be identified and kept out. Like a badge, like they want to come in the door, click, and then whoop, whoop, whoop. This is a weeder, and here's his list of derelictions, and no, he's not getting in. That's it. One strike, 2 strike, done. That's how it's going to be done from now on. And not some kind of shameful parody of democracy that are exterminationist enemies have funded and promoted up until now. Which brings me back to the bill on political proxyism and stoogism. There will be clear identifiers for it, and then the people that look to fit the bill, they will be investigated, and if it turns out that they are that, like I said, depending on how egregious or aggravated the sentence is, could be 3 to 5 years or a death sentence. That's how serious that needs to be taken, and not like it has been up until now. Laugh, 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 back clap. Some crappy lawyers and their cash deals. We're going to put a whole category of them in like a database, how they've acted up until now, and they'll be used as the way to identify ones in the future. That's how terrible this time has been. And we will establish a committee for workers, for soldiers, for families, and the people that show up better be serious and put in the work to solve real problems or bring up the real problems and keep out the nonsense. And what is spoken about and discussed in those areas will be taken very seriously, especially if they're of merit. And we can also have committees on culture and religion too. And then when I say religion, I don't mean world religions. I mean religious practice in the form of behavioral principles that lead to good psychological and social outcomes, and not any of this radical crap that we've been inundated with. Or perhaps we could call it morality. There we go. We don't have to get in religion. The word is already defunct. There will be a moral ethic committee for ethics. And the people that are part of it, there will be a lot of vetting that goes on. And no, this is not a one world kind of idea. This is for this country, its heritage, its background, and not for a come-all, free-for-all of people that think they know how to teach people about ethics when their group affiliation might make it impossible to conclude that that's even possible. Know yourself. This is a very old saying. Some people attribute it to Socrates, but it's much, much, much older than that. But let's add an addendum to it. But don't trust yourself, or don't trust the self or a self. That's oftentimes what Patuginas do, worldly people, vulgar people, common people. Well, I wanted this, or AI, see, always put parentheses or brackets around an I. This thing called I wanted this, and I trusted it. Or I knew this thing called I had a weakness for this, that, and the other thing. And so, of course, I went along with it because I trusted myself, or a self. See, it's not myself. It's not yourself. It's a self. See, that's where we get into the moral mind territory. What is the easiest way to trick someone? Well, make them believe that they want this or that thing, or don't like this or that thing. And then, of course, it's their idea, their thought. But is it really, where did it come from? What if it's a foreign idea? What if it's a subversive idea? What if it was deliberately splattered into distribution channels to mess people up, but people identify with it? They identify themselves with it. I don't like being a woo man. Well, we got a story for you. It was all their fault. They're oppressing you. Oh, if it wasn't so horrific, it would be funny. But I tend to look at it on the funny side most days. At this point, I'm sort of out of the bear trap, I would like to think. So I can spot them a mile away, and I do avoid them by a mile. If I do get close to one, I just smirk. Now, this isn't to say all woo-mans, but certainly the deluded ones, not a single syllable of their argumentation comes even close, of that variety comes even close to even bothering me now. It's just noise. It's like gravel, the sound of gravel in a dump truck. That's how neutral it is to me now. But it does aggravate a lot of other people, doesn't it? Somebody wrote in, hey, don't even try to relate to us common folk. You're a saint by comparison. Yeah, well, don't think that way, right? If it's aggravating you, be mindful of it. See, know yourself, know a self, know the self. But don't trust it. Where is the aggravation coming from? Well, there must be an attachment. If you don't have a conduit to that thing, if you're not conducting something, there's not an attachment to that thing, then there is no aggravation about that thing. I want this, but why does it act like that? See, that's sort of the matrix of disappointment. But I can't stop wanting this thing that's super aggravating. Well, whoa, you're going to burn yourself to a cinder. That's like hitting the brakes and pressing on the gas at the same time. You're going to burn out your motor or your whatever. You're going to break your vehicle, your psychological vehicle, right? Your chariot. See that chariot card? I'm going to bust the axle. The wheels are going to start sound like this. That's how you're going to be riding around. I could do a small film called The Chariot Rider, where I'm wearing that glamorous breastplate and armor, and my chariot, everything looks glammed out, but the chariot wheels are duking themselves through the landscape. See, let's not forget the Scythians were a horse-centric people. That was the main vehicle of transportation. They were sort of rolling stones. So they were big into motion and metaphors of motion. They knew all about those sounds. Duka, 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 duka. It's sort of like these messed up vehicles that sound loud on purpose, like these people are the every time you hear someone with an over loud muffler or something, remember this metaphor. There's a dukkha, there's a vehicle of dukkha, there's a dukkha vehicle, a symbolic form that's manifested itself. And if you start getting angry about the loudness, the unnecessariness of that, then you can see your attachment to a perfect situation that doesn't exist really in Samsara all the time, does it? Huh? And then laugh. Next time that happens, laugh to yourself. Hopefully the windows are up so people don't think you've completely gone insane, but every time now it can be a source of amusement. First off, it shows the idiocy of mankind, and it shows the vulgarity and the loudness of it. Like, they want to be recognized for stupidity. But now it's a teaching vehicle for you, because dukkha is what the Buddha understood. And that's how he understood it. And now you do too, because you're mindful. So know the self, know a self, know selves. But don't trust it. Don't trust yourself. Don't trust a self. Don't trust the thing called self. To be wise, right? It's a mammalian invention. It's part of the three-brain creature. It's not something to be trusted. It's something to be mindful of. Something to be aware of. Where is this anger coming from again? How did I just woke up. What happened? Right? That's mindfulness. That's confronting the work. And then doing the work is a second and third step, like letting it go. Like, oh, I caught myself. Yes. Let me drop this right now. Oh, let me hit that button. Boop. Dropped it. Yes. 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 Do that. Because that's the way we can do things. And yeah, all these maniacal people, essentially we do have we're living in an oligarchic system. A lot of my suggestions from political ones from previous episodes, they can easily be applied now that we know what we're dealing with. Also with wealth, like I said, anybody over $10 million, that just gets confiscated. And any assets, however they hide them. Like just look into wealth guarding, the 500 different varieties that they employ or something like that. Apply a methodology to it and it just gets repurposed. And all laws favoring them, that they get erased, and so on and so forth. They're also the part of the whole classist dynamic. They invented a class out of their patooey as a long-term wealth guarding strategy. Again, these Ivy League universities that they usurped, they can be taken out and reformed, and so on and so forth. They have a distinct way of operating, and it's very easy to unravel it. But of course, they're going to bring all forces that they can muster in this decrepit time to keep that from happening. And yeah, believe it or not, nobody is worth anything to them that would try to keep them from living out their malignant, narcissistic, greed-obsessed fantasy in samsara. So do realize that they and their network will put up a fight, but they also will make themselves noticeable thereby. And how should the people deal with people like that? So the second part is don't become like the thing. Don't become the thing you destroy. Now, I've realized it's easier said than done, but really at this point, I do think a lot of ignorance has gone into this. There's not just been the subnormally greedy people that have caused this. It's just been a lot of ignorant people. They thought, or were told, that becoming wealthy is the equivalent to becoming meritorious. And at some point, that might have been the case. Yeah, you were a good merchant. You made you made a bunch of good deals. You respected your workers. You respected your suppliers. You became wealthy. So there was a certain segment of the society that not only believed it, but sort of thought it to be true. But unfortunately, in times of monopoly and oligarchy, we're really talking about the higher levels, such as the monopoly on the banks, right? Monopoly on political office, monopoly in education, monopoly in culture, and so on and so forth. And these are bigger issues. Again, the merchant, like I said, if you make it to 10 million in my book, you've tapped out the highest level that you can attain as far as merit goes in material terms, and you don't need to go beyond that. That would be leaving the middle path, wouldn't it? So a lot of other people would say 10 million is already way too much leniency as far as that delusional idea goes. Maybe I'm just being lenient. I know some merchants might be able to, or business people might be able to make that without being bad people. It's just after that, how do you get more than 10 million without being a bad person or investing in things that essentially amounts to some form of greed? Now, if they come and try to tell me that that's possible, what's the point of even entertaining it? Get some other hobbies. Pick up, how about this? You're a rich person. After 10 million, go into like tropical fish cultivation, where you get these different aquariums and you work on sea life and little, biotopes. Do something, enrich your life in real terms, or even in obscure terms, but don't keep going that route. Don't be a horse that keeps flogging itself in the wrong direction just because you thought it was the right direction. See, that's coming back to ignorance again. Let these materialist people, common normal people, especially people that grew up poor, so they had this delusion that money was everything, let them know that it isn't. And let the rich people know too. And also, like I said, there's multiple different ways now that we know what we're dealing with, that they can be completely eliminated from civil society. And it can be done humanely in some cases, and where they align with hostile foreign powers or commit atrocious acts against civil society, then they can be also treated in kind. So the wise ones amongst them would walk away. Like, I often make the suggestion they should just cash everything out now and maybe move to Tijuana, where you can get 20x purchase things there than in civilized countries. Okay, but hey, maybe Mexico will be one of the first countries that gets rid of its oligarchic system, along with Brazil, India, Russia, and China. And they'll be the ones that lead the world into the next millennium, instead of, other places that traditionally weren't oligarchic but became them in this time. So no, we don't need a repeat of Rome. We don't need overly rich people. Like I said, billionaires, that's ridiculous. And as far as the common people go, yeah, becoming filthy rich is not meritorious. It's the opposite of that. Let that be known. I know I shouldn't talk about politics because, you see, Jambujita is meant to be somewhat like a hell realm. So if you focus on the problems, you're really, and especially if you exaggerate them psychologically, or you're only dealing with those issues, you're burning up so much bandwidth. But this is a war measure, right? Psychological warfare is a part of that. So your side is jammed up, the other side is jamming you up, but of course, there's plausible deniability. They say they're not, but who are they funding? Your system's open, their system's closed. And then you have all of these terrible developments that a disinformation campaign repackages as some type of modernism, when in fact it's a barbarism. Such as flipping, making the abnormal normal, and then people that are against the new normal, they're then the new bad people, 1984 style. And then emotionalize, attack. Violence, yeah. Tyrannical sadist, hopefully that name alerts a few good people to what they're actually dealing with on a psychological level. And it's not people engaging in political debate. It's people engaging in a socio-economic political takeover to your detriment. But they get to play funny games while they're doing it. And they're in it for the funny games because they're sort of insane maniacs on a certain level. And it's not rational. They might make money with their scheme. They might be paid by hostile foreign actors. They also might not. They might just get off on the satiation of tyranny and sadism. Oh, there you go. Surprise. We're not dealing with upstanding, normal people. We're essentially dealing with abnormal people that are being falsely portrayed as victims and normal per the Darvo model. This is a flipping of, they're victimizing good society, but while they're doing that, their little friends are flipping that paradigm so that, no, it's the good society that was victimizing them by keeping them out. And again, them could be anyone. Right? If the Persians decide to keep out the Uzbeks, is that a wrong thing? Or would we have a Persian contingent if it became Uzbek? Yes or no? These are just academic questions. If you're not involved, it's academic. And you can say, well, it would be wrong for the Uzbeks to encroach on areas that are traditionally Persian and vice versa. But in the West, Western civilization, no, of course we can't do that. You have to accept everyone. And if you don't, you're a bad person. You have to eat all your peas. You have to eat 10 cans of peas, otherwise you're a bad person. You're harming yourself. So you see how you can shift the amount and become a sadist? Like 1 can of peas, it's good. 10 cans is sadistic, forcing people to eat 10 cans of peas. 10 people from, let's say, ethnically similar countries is okay. Accepting 100,000 of them, not so much. So see, numbers do matter. And also, what kind of people can integrate and which ones don't. Now, if you think it's just Western civilization that has this problem, you're very, 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 very wrong. You see, they keep that a frame on Western civilization, spotlight on Western civilization, but Southeast Asia has this problem. Burma has this problem with different ethnicities that seem to be similar, that don't like each other. Africa has a gigantic problem that goes back since the beginning of time. Zulus don't like these people. These people don't like those people. The Rwandans don't like the Congolese. All over the continent. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of different cases. Why isn't that included in anthropology? Oh, it doesn't support their maniac theories? Does it make them look crazy? They don't like that. So no, that's not included. They might cherry pick a few weird things like, oh, there was a Fijian paradise where women ruled everything. And then it was taken over by some barbaric manly tribe. And unfortunately, that paradise was in. They do crap like that. Like Margaret Mead, don't read anything she ever did. She was motivated herself to skew the anthropology, and people jumped on it. The international jumped on it. See, we're talking about organized psychological terrorists and funded, right? But she should have been discredited a long time ago. She's still considered to be some type of pioneer in totally ridiculous academic settings. But see, that's the thing. The stated purpose in an academic setting that's been co-opted is not that you learn good things that are true, but bad things that aren't true. Per the internationalist model, that's what they do in Russia and China. They don't have facts that don't suit the party that they admit. They don't do that. And yeah, that model, they're trying to export it to the entire world. And they've done it. They've infiltrated and subverted the West to a large degree at this time. It's just been by degrees. Like in the 70s, they were maybe 20% present. 80s, 30, 90s, 40, and so on, the march through the institutions. They admit this crap. But people just don't know, like, what does that mean? Well, it means spreading falsehoods and attacking good people with a global, like I said, there's global interest in play that also involve perhaps your people being genocided or subjected into non-existence, and then flipped every which way but loose. And of course, you're always the perpetrator, and they're the victim. Their side is the historical victims. Your side was the historical perpetrators, Darva. Deny, attack, flip. So yeah, if you're not on board with that, you need to identify these people. Do not give them the benefit of the doubt. Nothing they say or do is good. And it starts with their little half-truths, and it goes all the way up to total genocide, total tyranny, and total subversion per some type of concentration camp, loony bin model. And no, I'm not exaggerating that. That's absolutely what is in play. The people that downplay that, look at them twice. Is that something you want to downplay, or is that something you want to look at realistically? Oh no, the next door neighbor's not a murderer, but there's 5 dead bodies in his backyard. You think you should know that information? Right? Oh no, he just has bad days. Imagine someone telling you that. But you look out the window, there's dead bodies all over the place. Is that person helpful? Is that a good person? Is that someone who's just, weighing, giving people equal airtime? Like, would that be the appropriate position to take? So look out for their straight men and women that play like this neutral role that's completely phony and transparent, because they're in on it. Like I said, these are false judges. They're leveraged in some way. They're very cowardly. And in many cases, they are in on it, which means they are culpable, which means they're criminally, just like the accomplice. They're a criminal accomplice. The driver driving to a bank robbery didn't rob the bank, still was in on it. They play the role of playing down what we're actually dealing with, to slow down, negate, or dull a response to what you're actually dealing with. If your neighbor is a murderer, you need to move or call the police or right, barricade the door, or that would be appropriate right action. It's not, well, I'll just watch out for him on bad days. That's not an adequate response. But see, that's sort of the response they want you to have, which isn't adequate, which means over time, lots of people get killed and don't take right action. And being able to be a separate people that is ethnically distinct, has a different history, does things differently, all of that is perfectly okay. That's very humane. You can have a breed of cows that you keep in a different pen. And why do you do that? Well, because they get along with each other a lot better. How about you separate the bulls out so that you don't have just them causing difficulties under artificial conditions, so you keep them in their own pen? How about that? Are there many agrarian examples of this that are morally neutral? Yes? Oh, well, why can't we apply it to humans? Well, no, that's when these moralizing terrorists, I think that's a good way of describing them, moralizing terrorism, kind of emotionalizing people, ramp up their con machine. Because Westerners are moral people, and this is a moral attack, and that's how they execute it. No, you can't be separate. We don't want you to be separate. We want to be amongst you, and other people, anybody can be amongst you, because that's the moral thing for you to do. Because God forbid you would to exclude people that aren't like you, that don't act like you, that don't like you, because then what would that mean? Would that would be better for you? That's terrible. So people that have that line of thinking, spot them, identify them, and exclude them. You are not dealing with good people, you're dealing with bad people using bad moral argumentation. Sophistic, terroristic argumentation, which also has terroristic results. So we are in an age of total bamboozlement. It started when we had distributed information networks that were co-opted over time gradually, and that these interests did not present themselves as doing that, but rather redefining us to ourselves and our entire socioeconomic and political systems and histories to go along with it. So, yes, and of course, countervailing voices like mine or real historians or other people, philosophers, haters. They get that label, they get excluded, they get dismissed, they get discredited. Only their narrative is the good narrative. That's the shtick, that's the ploy. So that's what we're dealing with. It's very, 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 very disappointing for Westerners. Not so much for people that didn't ever belong to Western civilization and hated it once they got to know it, or were envious of it, or afraid of it, or felt hampered by it. For those people, for Western civilization going away via subversion and this form of terrorism, that's the best news they heard. They can't believe their luck. Like, there wasn't a nuclear war and they were able to pull this off. And then they just get to move in and take things over while keeping that lie going, a big lie going, and of course applying the method. Anyone not on narrative is a bad person, no matter how crazy the narrative is. And anyone on narrative is good, and they get promoted or paid within the systems that they control. So, diabolical, yes. Terrible, yes. What we're dealing with, yeah, that's what we're dealing with. And like I said, they started off slow, old people, they really started off slow with these fairy tales. The boomers were the first generation to really get it, because that's TV, came on like Howdy Doody. Ask them about Howdy Doody. How was Howdy Doody beamed into their homes? Well, they didn't just beam Howdy Doody. Now, did they? But it was all just, sunshine and rainbows, and because everything was generally orderly, they didn't think it could turn into a genocidal program. But that's what the Overton window does, and that's what the other side has ramped up over time. So it's not just about illegal immigration. It's about people that don't belong and shouldn't have been let in the first place. But then again, with lawfare and political warfare, you have people openly working for the other side with no accountability for the public. But still, this is supposed to be a democratic system. But then you have cognitive dissonance, because they're into piss making 24/7, 365. That's their full-time job. And there doesn't really seem to be any repercussions, because maybe they're throwing the elections too. In places where only their kinds of people are put up to vote, and so on and so forth, which represents the co-option of the political institution itself, at least within these areas where these people have been organized enough to pull off these kinds of atrocities, such as the mayor of Boston right now, perhaps the mayor of New York City, the governor of California, governor of New Jersey. Who else could fall into this category historically? They haven't yet gone into a book, but they very well could if there's a time in the future where such books will be considered useful and valuable to a people that is still intact and can still understand English, which is a crapshoot in 2025, whether or not that will even exist in 50 years' time. Now, some people might say, oh, you're being hyperbolic. Well, not really. Latin died out. Why you would think English would continue? Don't know. So people, yeah, this is a wake-up call. Like, you need to see these people for what they are, where they came from, what they want, and start taking evasive action. Not just for yourself, but for everyone else, because really a society is built up on a lot of people doing the right thing so that we can have good results and not terrible ones, which a lot of the oligarchs, we have to say, it's not just political the radical class, the radical left class that threw their hats in on this, it was also oligarchs that just saw a payout for themselves to be proxies for these forces. So we need to reform Wall Street fundamentally, the banks fundamentally, the political system fundamentally, the culture fundamentally. And this is not because we're bad people, but bad people have put us in a bad situation, have they not? So look, Trump, he's supposedly getting rid of the illegal immigrants. We'll see. Because, for example, they were all hanging out in the Roosevelt Hotel in Manhattan. The news came in, oh yeah, the mayor's now cooperating. They threw them all out, threw them into the Bronx. Didn't throw them into Guantanamo. Maybe they had a couple of flights there. But that was it. They didn't get rid of the whole problem. So this is going to take years and years to mop up and get right. And this is just the beginning. In the next political cycle, they're already organizing themselves to be even a worse factor than they were during the Obama and Biden administrations. You better believe that. For example, that was one of the things where this Department of Government Efficiency came out with. Only 5% were even going in to do their jobs. They asked them to write an email. Let us know, this is a pulse check. What did you do last week? Like 50% didn't even do that. But they were, subverting, misdirecting all those taxes people pay. So this is a heist, people. We're dealing with highly criminal elements that if a real government and real political leaders were on the scene, would get life sentences and death sentences for their treason against the United States, the people of the United States. Right off the bat, disinformationists, life sentence. So don't think like I'm some type of wild person that takes that lightly. I don't like to see anybody go to jail. But I also don't like to see people commit crimes over and over and over and over and over again, and nothing happens to them, and bad things happen to everyone else. Now, I say this again impartially. I'm not looking to benefit by doing this. In fact, where's my benefit? Where's my applause? There's the coffee link. Where's my coffee? Maybe 3 people send me a coffee when I say that. Okay? But people working with tyrannical sadists, they get payouts like $300,000. Hey, you push this LGBT crap, which is subversion, by the way. Here, we'll just give you $300,000 on the low, and you can continue doing your day job and pretend to be a CEO for the shareholders you hate and the owners you hate, and you can pretend in this gray zone of ignominy and ridiculousness that you're really concerned about these subversive groups, and you're a moral person, and then you retire and you get your retirement, you get that paycheck, and you get the money on the low that these hybrid war operators organize for them. Don't think that happens. Don't think that's how they change their tune so quickly, these corporate POSs, that all they cared about was money anyway. They wouldn't take a shady deal like that. You don't think so? Don't think they wouldn't report that on their taxes? You don't think so? I have a feeling that they don't really care about the butt uppers. It was the money that made them do it. But that's a crime. It's an illicit one. It's hard to catch, but I would say by the fruits ye shall know them. I can't imagine one of these godless, money-grubbing dunces doing anything for free, do you? But all of a sudden, they became concerned about alphabet soup. So who's the dummies? Are we the dummies or are they the dummies? Or are the times changing? Because they ran off with that man money. the first ones, the early adopters. Now things are starting to catch up with them. Ain't that right? But remember, it's not just the alphabet soup people. It's any type of political position. For example, the pro-Russian position, that's a lobby. The people coming out with these pro-Russian talking points, or pro-Indian, or Brazilian, or Chinese, or South African, they're on the tape. They didn't just come to those conclusions. They took the money. Pro-Saudi, whatever. Pro any type of foreign entity. The only reason they're doing it is because they're getting paid money for it. Either officially or unofficially. And unofficially, that's an illicit crime. And officially, it's a blatant abomination. That they should have some type of platform here and browbeat people telling the truth. How is that right? These people are right. They're as crooked as they come. So you didn't know that, now you know. People, I don't care who it is. Joe Rogan, who was the other one? The Beanie Boy, the Tim Beanie, Tim Poodle. He was caught in a scandal where every time he said some pro-Russian talking point, he got paid $100K. So you don't think that's out there? If it was caught in that instance. So start seeing these influencers for what they are. A lot of them aren't going to heaven, and many of them will likely go to jail if they can even make it there sometime in the future. But right now, we don't know when that's going to be because they're out of control at this point. Burnt down all of Los Angeles. 2.5 times Manhattan, burning all down. Criminal negligence. Still, the mayor still, she fired some lesbo firefighter, so-called. Fired them. She's still the mayor of Los Angeles. So this is a national kind of campaign, and it's a hybrid one. So the sooner all of these campaigns and people, these political proxies get shut down and shut out and not replaced by something even remotely similar, the better for all of the American people, the United States, and all of the Western civilization, Western allies, and Western Europe, and anywhere else where free peoples, and even non-Western peoples, free peoples want to live free of crap like this. So there you go. I think I've said everything I need to say. I probably repeated myself 3 times. There's that coffee link. Nobody paid me to say that, so thank you very much. You could call me the next president, the real president of the United States. There you go. Haven't been elected yet. We'll see. Maybe tomorrow. But there is that coffee link, so you can use that. God bless you all. God bless the truth, and God bless a better future that all good people do deserve. But bad people, they'll get what's coming to them one of these days, either in this life or the next. That is certain. Causality is real. Misperceptions of the Enlightenment. One of the foremost of which is that thinking per se is good or necessary. When you should just think of thinking like you would any other activity, you could think of it, if you want to look at it, in a positive way, like gymnastics. But if you're doing gymnastics 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you're not on the middle path. You're going to hurt yourself. It's unnecessary. It's extreme. It's counterproductive. And as good as you might think you are, and as non-delusional as you might think you are, that is impossible. The more you think, the more you open yourself up to delusion, the more you open yourself up to Mara mind. The more you open yourself up to monkey mind. Really, monkey mind's innocuous compared to Mara mind. If you want to look at the difference is the monkey, he's going after bananas. The Mara mind, the monkey's going after grenades. But these aren't really physical grenades that will kill the monkey. These are grenades that will just hurt the monkey, poison the monkey, right? Make the monkey sick or agitated. It make the monkey averse or desirous or comparative or accusatory or denunciatory and so on and so forth. Essentially make the monkey insane, like people become or go. See, we lock up people that go crazy so we don't see them. Just like we bury dead people so we don't really realize how much death is all around us. We compartmentalize it as a society, but it's a lot more prolific than you might think, which means you should be more aware of it and also more aware of the dangers of either going crazy in anything you do. Like I just mentioned gymnastics. Yeah, there are crazy gymnasts out there. See, people sitting on the sofa clicking through TV channels or just staring into their phones all day say, oh, that's crazy, being a crazy gymnast, but they're crazy in their own way. What they're settling for in life, a lot of it is delusional. A lot of these people plug into views and opinions that are really misleading, and they're presented and served up daily by disinformational characters and networks and people that are in that business to make the implausible seem plausible just because they say so. And yeah, good people get hurt in that business, and people hurt their brains trying to keep up with what are the newest kind of takes on different things that worldly actors have a vested interest in presenting this way or that way, or this way or that way. Yesterday's hero is today's villain, or today's villain is tomorrow's hero, just because they go through these narrative cycles, spin cycles they call them. And the people that believed end up becoming cynical or jaded or disgusted or burnt out keeping up with it all. When in fact they shouldn't have been keeping up with it in the first place. You need to reduce your thinking activity. Thinking per se is not good. Thinking is also not always necessary. Why are you thinking? Why can't you just be? How long can you just be without thinking? How long can you just focus on the breath and give yourself and everyone else a break as far as trying to figure out everything that this dimension is about, which is impossible in the first place and doomed to failure, doomed to dissatisfying results? Why would you need to be the smartest person in the world? What would be the point of that? Just like any activity, if you're engaging in it, it should have a tangible benefit for you in the form of not being aggravating, for example. I wanted to be the first on the scene of a traffic accident because I wanted to know. I wanted to know. I'm curious. I wanted to do this. I wanted. See, want, desire. Wanted to know. And now I know, and now what? You're on to the next thing. Ambulance chasing. From one disaster to the next, from pillar to post. That is not better than sitting down in a secluded place and not thinking about anything. In fact, it's much, much worse than doing that. Whereas sitting down not thinking about anything is pretty humane, pretty realistic, and pretty achievable. Whereas knowing all the angles on all these different worldly things is not really possible. Now, you can also wish all living creatures well, just as a thought exercise. Think of the frogs making all that cool noise, like those that are ribbiting in a little pond. They don't know what's going on around them. They're just ribbiting, making a music with what they have, oblivious to the world. You can be the same way. Why not be the same way? You deserve it as a life form. What, your leg's broken? You can't run around? Do yourself that favor. Your expectations are broken. Do yourself that favor. You wanted too much. You didn't want this. You wanted that instead. Do yourself a favor. Right? That's the whole point of meditative prayer, is reclaiming your agency, your awareness, your mind from wherever it wanted to go, you pull it back. We do not need more lawnmower mind people blazing through samsara in these circuitous, torturous, meaningless loops. It's just the appearance of importance, the appearance of meaning, the appearance of excitement. But once we get there, it's already gone. And then it's on to the next thing. That is the samsaric loop. Once you realize that's how things can work down here psychologically, many people, what do you think the 5-day work week is, or shifts are based on? That's right, psychology, circuitous psychology. You keep going back. Your mind keeps going back to the awful things or the things you don't have. That's unskillful mind. So it's about monitoring, it's about correcting, it's about pulling back, it's about simplifying, it's about disengaging again and again and again on a repetitious basis, and not letting anyone or anything pull you out of that state. If you can help it, at least you reclaim your mind after a time. If it gets off the leash, you put it back on the leash. You might have to track it down. It might take you a day or two. But then you put it on the leash, you bring it back, right? Put it where it's a better place for it to be. It's not attacking the neighbors. It's not injuring itself. But you're also not necessarily stifling it, but you are giving it direction. Like, okay, within this context, right view, right effort, right awareness, you can be active, but only within these parameters. So, ready, set, go. You can start the non-starter. You can break the circuitous loop. If it's just for 1 second, that's really a victory. So we're up against conditioning. We've been conditioned. I've mentioned this many times, for overperformance. And overperformance is worse than underperformance. At least for the performers, right? Underperformance, who is setting these standards for you, right? The gymnast, that he's setting his own comparative frame, and our frames have been constructed for us, conditioned into us, that are not healthy or wholesome. But we can also, if we don't have those things to blame, we can just say it was our causality. In a way it was. To be born into systems that sort of encourage that kind of mindless behavior, hedonism, misdirection, yeah, you really should want this, and then fill in the variable bad thing that won't lead to any kind of satisfaction in the end. And being pitched it overtly and covertly, subconsciously. And these things are, in many cases, on a subconscious level, and we just think that they're the things we want naturally, or should want, or do want. When in fact, they're not. They're optional. What is truth is that we will one day die. Like I said, society hides that fact from us. If they didn't, see, for example, in Asia, where you have a lot of people running around like chickens with their heads cut off, people are dead. Like, you'll see dead people lying around, traffic accidents, nobody got rid of it. Now, when I say Asia, how about India? Include that. Old Jambujita. Lots more death to be seen there, whereas where we are, we get rid of it real quick to keep people in sort of that bubble of delusion that death is not ever present. But that thought, it is a wake-up call. It's one of the reasons why, if you look at those paintings of the Dutch masters that include a skull in it, that's supposed to be the symbolic wake-up call. Yeah, your time here is limited. Make use of it. Don't be externally focused. Don't be externally driven. It's an internal journey here. But it's not about achieving something. It's about not thinking about things. It's about abiding. See? Padujanus made a joke about that. Like, what was it? The dude abides. They thought that was funny. They tried to mock that. But take off the mockery, and y'all should learn how to abide more. And why can't you abide where you are with what you have? Why can't you? If it's so easy and so stupid, why can't you do it? Try it. Just set a timer. Try it for 5 minutes, then 15. Then if you can do it for 15 hours straight, that is more of an accomplishment than working. At least in psychological terms, spiritual terms. Oh yeah. It's easier said than done. Oh yeah, of course I could do nothing for 15 minutes. No, I didn't say sleeping. I said being aware. Perhaps being in a stress position. That's allowed. But keeping the mind focused like a laser beam. Just in abiding. But yeah, thinking is a distraction. It's if you're juggling the balls in the air, it's the equivalent of dropping the balls. But we think thinking is juggling the balls, but it's really dropping the balls. So we have an upside down perspectionist common view on these matters. But with time, you can change wrong view. You can see things in a different way. So do that. Try that. Put on a different pair of sunglasses. Put on the yellow-colored ones, right? The rose-colored ones, the blue ones. Give yourself some options. Someone wrote in and asked, "Did you really mean it with Miss Universe? Is that for real? I never know if you're telling the truth or if it's a joke. Thank you." Oh no, that's real. That offer stands. But my agent's negotiating it. I mean, having to put up with a woman like that isn't an easy undertaking, is it? I'd be a sucker to take that deal in a way. But I guess I would have to say yes just because, but I would have to look into the jury and the contest. If it was rigged, I would have to walk away from it. But if it was legitimate, how could I say no? It would be an offer I couldn't refuse. On the other hand, does that sound like good practice to you? Watch out what you wish for, you just might get it. But I did not, officially that was not a wish, that was just a statement. I think she would be on the level if she did win, hands down. But certainly many of them are not. Let's just make that known. I think that's something people don't need to hear twice. They know it's the truth. But yeah, maybe out of compassion and public pressure, I'd have to cave once I said that it was a possibility. I couldn't necessarily walk away from it. But like I said, that's only according, if the stipulations were met and if the contest was not thrown or ridiculous because they made it ridiculous for some reason or another to tweak my nose. It'd have to be an appropriate candidate. Right, maybe it would have to be a different contest. If Miss Universe has been trademarked, we'd have to call it maybe Miss Multiverse or something like that. Hey, where are my royalties? Where are my royalties? What? No seashells for me? No peanuts? No bananas? No coffee? Not even rotten fruit. Whoa! I can't help this crowd. Can't even help the hecklers. See there, I see my galley sleeves in the back. They're still cheering. Yeah, their chains are making sounds. Yay! Hey, look at me waving. Galley sleeves, hello. Your boy swam for freedom and he made it. God bless you. Oh man, they're cheering now. Those chains, you can hear them. But yeah, I think they're the ones that want that to happen. They want a true Hollywood ending. They want something good like that. Right? For me, they think, in their worldly way. But yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 of them. They're up to par. I don't know. We'd have to turn things around. Get people crazy off, son. Yeah, no, I don't know. Not looking to sign that deal necessarily, but like I said, I might be pressured into it because there's such a high demand for noble, inspirational figures in purgatory, is there not? Not that I'm one of those, but I'm just saying. Oh, there they are, the galley slaves jumping up and down. Woo! I had to watch that ship. The taskmasters are going to be back in a second, whipping those cat o' nine tails. Wow, wow, whoosh. Get back to work, slaves. Whoosh, whoosh. Stop laughing. See, don't forget, this isn't hell. This is purgatory. So laughs are allowed. It's just you got to steal them. You got to be a little wise. You got to take the 5 minute extra 4 minute lunch break, right? Something like that. But anyway, yeah, I was hanging a mechanism recently. I thought it was mildly complicated. Oh, by the way, don't go wide focus on life. If you're doing something, give yourself a couple of tries, like 3, 4, 5 tries to get it right. And then just focus on what you're doing. Don't take the wide lens and look. Like, for example, this mechanism was up 100 feet in the air. So if you're going to take the wide lens, you're going to get disoriented and fearful, and it's also going to jam you up. So just take the close focus. Okay, I'm climbing a ladder. It's just one rung at a time, and you're just focusing on what you're doing. And if it's a reasonable thing to do, and if you've done it once or twice, it's not all that terrifying. Then you climb up, you climb back down if you need to. You forgot a tool, climb back down. Maybe you do it not that moment, you do it in 3 days' time, especially if it doesn't really matter. Take a look at it. Was it the right position? No? Okay, then you schedule a time where you can move it a little bit. Well, anyway, this mechanism, it seemed to be simple to me, but it was pretty complicated. And then when I was putting it up, it became entangled, and it was impossible, even with a light on the spot, to untangle it. So I had to take it all the way down. And I had to work on it like 15 minutes to get it untangled. Then I had to practice how I was going to deploy it. And then I had to climb up again. And then even during the hanging process, there were complications. But it worked out in the end. But it took like at least 15 to 20 to 30 minutes longer than I would have expected if I had just taken the optimal approach on everything working as they should. And or jamming myself up about that not happening the way I thought it would. And so these are all principles for life. These are principles you can apply to your circumstances. Do not take the wide lens. Right? We have television, like telescope. You can look into the far reaches of the world, like, right, Saruman's crystal ball. But that's going to disorient you and jam you up. Keep it close focus. Keep it what's right under your nose. Keep it to the nose and the breath flowing through the nose. If you want to bring it to that close of a focus, which I recommend doing on a regular basis to reboot your system. And then just gradually, what's 1 meter around you? What's 2 meters? All right, 20 meters. Awareness. But then be aware of those things. A lot of people, they're not aware of their surroundings. They're all in their heads. They're all in the future, in the past, anywhere but the present. What? You painted the walls? I didn't even notice. Yeah, that type of personality, you don't want to be that. You want to be here now, again and again and again and again and again. But with compassion, with understanding, with patience. See, what I just described, patience was in abundance, so there was no unnecessary suffering. If I had started to blame myself, started to blame the universe, started to blame the dumb thing, the dumb ladder, started to rush myself, then injured myself, you see, on and on the causality of that. But with patience, it was like, okay, if not today, tomorrow, if not tomorrow, the next day. If I need a tool, I will go back and get it. And like I said, 5 days' time, I'll try it again, even though I don't necessarily want to. It's just the wise thing to do is to do it with the right tools and with the right attitude. But see, of course, we want everything now. We want to have the patient state of mind now. Like I just describe what you need, but you don't have it, but you want it. But how do you get it? Well, like I said, that exercise, taking 5 hours and focusing on the breath, that it seems like a long time, but in the course of a lifetime, if that's what it took to reset your mind and to get the patient's root fundamentally set in the soil of your soul, get it growing like garlic, right? You divide up the cloves, you space them out, you keep them in, right? You push them in with your finger, and spaced out, you space them out equidistantly, then you water them in, right? You put them in a place where they get enough sun, but not too much, and then you water them. It takes time, it takes patience. Patience takes patience. The root of patience takes a whole lot of patience to get it started and get it going and keep it going. Once you get garlic going, it's almost like a weed, right? You're like, hey, I didn't dig that out and spread it out, but it's going anyway. If you die, people will be like, who planted a garlic patch here? Look at this, there's garlic. Someone will be like, ugh, I'm not digging that up, that's disgusting. I just buy stuff at the store. Okay, perspective, right? It's a perspective. Common, normal, vulgar, subnormal people have it. Supernormal people be like, what are you talking about? This is awesome. This is magical garlic. This is the real deal. This is, look, it's much different than the stuff you find at the supermarket. This will knock your socks off. This isn't just a common species of garlic. This is something that was cultivated. It's potent. It's very potent. But it has other aspects to it that keep you coming back and thinking about it. It has this opening note, but then it has this middle kind of effect, and then all of a sudden there's this glow. You just feel this glow, this aura around you. And should you have been sick, you all of a sudden you're healthy. Isn't that crazy? They said nothing else would work. You see? You got to give yourself time to make these kinds of micro discoveries and micro cultivation. It has to start on the micro level. But if you don't have patience, bring some patience. Be like, all right, the teacher said this requires patience, so I'm going to bring this much patience. And then when you start and you see that maybe that's not enough, reapproach it with some more. If you lose your patience, that's the meta problem. You got to regain that, then reapproach with more patience. But back to a few points about hybrid war. So people would like, because we have the pretense of democracy, like to think that we can have opposition in totalitarian systems. But totalitarian systems don't allow opposition. And if you don't believe me, you just have to look to the overt totalitarian systems, such as Russia or China. There is no opposition, it's one party. And so the oligarchic equivalent to that in the West does not tolerate opposition. Now what they do is fund fake opposition, which is people that appear to be opposed to them, but they're just LARPing. And you have to realize that in totalitarian systems, you have a lot of insane, misguided people that are also misinformed on a continuous basis. They have no access to information that is even remotely credible. Not information about the past, which totalitarians serve up alternative histories that are very heavily moralizing in a completely inverted way. And they're also predictive. The predictions that they make are all doomerist. Your type of people will go away, your type of people are banned. It's best that you disappear, and so on and so forth. So these are insane conditions, like in a concentration camp, and it creates insane people. But it also has a radical class. And the radical class is privileged to predate on the people that the system was built for, which was free people, the founder stock people. Why wouldn't they have a claim to their own country? Well, the radical class doesn't see it that way. They're interlopers, they're usurpers, they're despoilers, they're predators and oppressors. But they're into LARPing as well, which is where this whole imposter syndrome goes. But there are some of them that are so insane that they take the LARPing to a degree that they pretend to be the opposition to troll it, just for the lols. Like, these are people who have psychological derangements of all kinds. And they're into phony, let's say, approximations or sarcastic performance or performative acts that are supposed to discredit the narrative that the other side has. So if we're going to take the Chinese context, imagine the fat cat tyrants at the top deciding, let's say they're princelings or little nomenclatura affiliated kinds of groups. They dress up like Japanese and have like Japanese parties where they pretend to be against the party, and then they encourage other people to join their ranks, and then they troll them or murder them or somehow engage with them in some kind of cat and mouse perverted game. And then they will create an incident, and then the other side of their group that's LARPing against them, like they all dress up in like traditional Chinese communist uniforms and say, these are bad people, and then they have like a little LARP event. So that happens, I guess you could say the ever-present. See, they also have to create the impression that there's an ever-present threat from the Japanese in China, or in America, it's neo-Nazism or, whatever, fascism, people dressed up like Mussolini. So you have to see them. They're two sides of the same coin. It's a psychological operation. Now, they're funded and are essentially domestic or foreign terrorists, mix of both, because that gives the impression that the establishment is maintaining order, but essentially it's just a shell game. It's a joke. It's like a drag kind of event. It's also meant to demoralize any type of real opposition, because then you get, again, some type of dynamic of engagement where they're the gobbledygoopists that are trying to distort, let's say, people wanting to live separately or independently or sovereignly, trying to bring them into the gobbledygook of moralizing, let's say, misrepresentations of themselves, or the basic desire to live in a free country, free of people that, for example, one doesn't want to live amongst, right? That had laws in the past that also were very legitimate, but they delegitimized them, and now they have an interest in keeping that delegitimization process going and monolithic. So yeah, don't be fooled by that, please. In purgatory or samsara, do see these jokers for who they really are, which are people that are so conceited, so deranged that they think they're doing something good for the world, or perhaps they really think they're doing something bad, like they might be devil worshippers, right? Who knows? Samsara has a lot of terribly misguided and bizarre people who are going to get terrible causality for their terrible deeds. But they don't think so. They think life's a joke. So they're sort of comedians, but they're just not funny ones. The joke's on them. But yeah, if you let them clown you, that would be pretty sad, wouldn't it? But yeah, sadists do stuff like that. There's a lot of sadists out there today. Get off on that. Bullies and blowhards and people that really convinced of themselves, have a lot of gibberish, academic gibberish. They're into historical gibberish, alternative history of a different kind. But yeah, that when you see these people out loud or anybody like them, anybody affiliated with them, just make a note, right? They're not this, they're not the same thing. They're not in the room. They're saboteurs. That's it. Wartime, hybrid war, lots of saboteurs. People playing pretend. No, I'm here for the company. I'm here. I want to increase efficiency, but today is Green Hat Day and you're not wearing a green hat. It's not about building nuclear reactors. It's about wearing the green hat. But no, I'm really working for the efficiency of this company. And production numbers are down 20%. Whose fault is that? It's your fault. Right? These are psychological terrorists. So in a hybrid war, why wouldn't you have them? And should they ever get the causality, which they will, either in this world or the next, do you think that's going to be good or bad for them? Just try to think about that one. I don't think it's going to be good for them. People who play stupid games win stupid prizes, don't they? So don't let yourself get crazy. Don't get agitated. It's a bad theater, that the group that they're involved in. And they're really only clapping for themselves. So yeah, but take note. But don't engage. Just walk away. There you go. From them, not from, basic standards and freedoms and other things that countries and people stand for, that they would like to deny in a tyrannically sadist fashion with some mockery and moronism dumped on top. They don't matter at all, do they? They just look like clowns, act like clowns, and not funny ones, not entertaining ones. So what will happen to them? Probably nothing good. So don't go that way, people. It's not wise. It's really not. And essentially it's names and labels. Oh, this X is that, but it's a false equivalency. I'm this, but they're not that. They're something else. You're this, but you're not that. So what does that matter? Do see these fools for what they are and so where they're going, and don't engage. Now, as far as political techniques go, you could also see it as a smear campaign with LARPing on top. And that's essentially it. It's nothing more crazy than that. And are there people horrible enough to do it? Well, yes, there are. Oh, yes, there's whole groups of horrible people doing horrible things for horrible reasons in samsara, of course. There's nothing surprising about it, so don't be surprised by it if you see it. And also don't remember the whole neo-Nazi thing, the whole neo-Napoleonism thing, it's something that the Russians have a hard-on for. So if you do realize that the Russians have been against the United States, on all different types of subversive and terroristic levels since the founding of the International in 1919, realized that all that language about neo-Nazism is coming from their side. The country they invaded, Ukraine, they claimed they were Nazis. That's why they were doing it. They were LARPing World War II in 2022. A completely inappropriate time. So look at the scale of the terrorism that these types of operations can lead up to. And then if you think it's funny or it's a joke or they're doing the Lord's work, just consider that this has led to the deaths of probably at least 1 million people, many of them good people at this time. And yet they want to misappropriate or apply these names and labels in the most inappropriate places on the planet. For example, Ukraine was never a Nazi or neo-national socialist place. Never was. They got rolled over, sort of like Poland did, from both sides. To the detriment of both sides, where most of the war fought, where most people died. So just think of the hateful, bizarre alternative history kind of popped out of a psych lab kind of thinking and names and labels and political, social, economic terrorism that these kinds of operations represent at this time. So the people that play false accusations like that and then LARP like that, are they just funny people playing funny games? Or what are they really? Now, it would be easy to say that they're bad people, but I would say they're a special type of class. They're the radical class. That's what they are. It's a class of people. So instead of neo-Nazi, just imagine them screaming bourgeois, bourgeois, bourgeois. And that's essentially about as much sense as it makes today. Or not pro-Russian imperialist. You could think of that too. Or not anti-Western enough. That's what they're signaling. But remember, it's also a two-person act. It's them, the buffoon, and then it's the straight man. Both of them are in on it. Both of them are radical class. Both of them are part of the disinformation frame. Both of them are part of the tyrannical sadist hate machine. Oh yeah, and they're fake staged events where the poor minorities are attacked by them. They get the photo ops, and then it just feeds into their narrative that these poor people that have done nothing for the country but wreck it are the true victims per the Russian disinformation model. Now, of course, that might be a little bit of an over-exaggeration. Not all of them have done that, have they? But enough to warrant people to question whether it was a good idea. But you can't do that in totalitarian systems that's making use of groups to fight other groups to divide and conquer. But there's no real solution other than to go separate ways amicably. But that is something that they deny is possible. And so on goes the circus, and on goes the terroristic campaign, and on go the people that don't understand or find a way past these terrible things because they're the barrier to that. At least that's the role they would like to play, and if they can continue it for 1 week or 6 months or a year, that's worth it to them. But is it worth it to the majority of people? I would say no. So who's undemocratic? Is it them? But they're bringing moral arguments that are completely fabricated. They must be offering something of merit. No? How? What? Nothing? Absolutely nothing? Wouldn't that be something an enemy faction would do, an enemy class would do? Seems very similar. I mean, everyone should make up their own minds about that. What do they really bring to the table by LARPing? Again, is it good things or not so much? But it's sort of sometimes funny to troll them back, like ask them, was Teddy Roosevelt a Nazi? Many of them would be like, yeah, he was. What about George Washington? Yeah, him too. It's like, okay. So wait a second. Every American president worth a damn was a Nazi too, like according to these loons. What about Woodrow Wilson? Yeah, of course he was. Woodrow Wilson sent troops to Europe. Now, I think that was the wrong decision, but these people are on planet radical classes. Nothing they say makes sense, but they do make a lot of use of emotional images and emotionalisms. The wooby men, the wooby booby men, engaging in sadism. Is it leather hat day? Leather boot day? These people are really, really pretty bizarre, aren't they? No, but by being a caricature of a caricature, I'm regaining power over the people that I despise. Some again, convoluted gobbledygook way of thinking is where their mind space is. So, is that a stench? Ugh, what is that stench? Oh man, you get even close to this stuff, it starts to stink like a sewage treatment plant. So yeah, troll factories, just like a subset of water armies, the trolls on the internet that write bad comments that are paid to do that. Oftentimes, so there was a recent bust of, they call it pig slaughtering, is their technique. Whole operation in Dubai, they arrested them all. It was like 1,000 Indians that they had taken the passports from, and like 30 Chinese organized criminals. They had them stripped down to their underwear in the Dubai sun, and all the Indians too. It looked like some type of insect colony. Recent bust on one of these scammer operations. So yeah, these terrible, terroristic, malignant forces, they got a lot of money and a lot of different kinds of ways of doing things. I think it's pretty funny. Make a lot of money off it. Think they're pretty clever until they all get busted, and then it looks pretty disastrous. They said the people, maybe it was UAE, they said that some there was also a bunch of Africans there too, like Ghanans or something. They're like, don't come here, run away. They've taken our shoes off and they haven't given us any water or allowed us to go to the toilet. Our hands are behind our backs with zip ties. We've been here for 8 hours. Yeah. Can happen in UAE. Why not in other places? I wonder if that circus show is really gonna keep going the way they think it will. But who could have predicted it? Who could have predicted it? They didn't predict it. But of course, who would wish ill on other living creatures? Of course not. Why not wish all living creatures well, that foolish people one day become enlightened without having to experience such things based on bad causality? Wouldn't you wish all living creatures well right now? Wouldn't you do it? Even for the most misguided amongst them, why not do that? But don't expect miracles, because causality is one thing that is absolutely certain. But lest someone accuse me of beating up too much on the wooby-booby white monkey contingent, are people willing to admit that Black Lives Matter was a Sino-Soviet operation with fifth columnists yet? Or are people still butthurt about being taken along for that ride at this time, which they really shouldn't be? But are they still? Can they admit it? Is it now publicly described in such terms, or are people still living under rocks at this time? Is it going to take another year for them to get the stench and gunk off them, or is it going to take even longer than that? Or maybe never. Let's not forget, a lot of these people, their egos don't allow them to admit they're wrong. The Swedes that were on board with Pol Pot went to the grave. They're still there, virtue signaling about that one. Can you believe it? See, wooby boobies in purgatory are preposterous. Here, put that on a shirt. Send me some royalties. Yeah, wouldn't you believe it? Preposterous people don't have any kind of come to Jesus moment. They just say, well, wasn't really understood. They just do denial, like a malignant narcissist does. Childish games, like deflection. Well, it wasn't important. I wasn't really all in anyway, but just explanation. Why did the skyscraper fall down? Well, I wasn't really there. I wasn't the engineer. I was the assistant engineer or something. People make explanations. Very low kinds of people, they never want to take accountability for anything, do they? The teenager that just got hooked on dope, you're going to get them to admit something about something. Where's the center? Where's their character? Where's the definitive answer in samsara? Are you going to get it here? Or are you just going to recognize it for what it is, and the people of low character that often do inhabit this place? But yeah, if you were, again, fooled, fool yourself about something else, but not that. Because there's a lot of horrible interests that are invested in those kinds of narratives. And it would really be better for the world if there was less tolerance for them or understanding of them. Is that not so? And for all the other wonderful people that have just admitted those facts and have moved on and haven't become hateful, terrible people, and so on and so forth. It's funny, there's so many people from Congo that write me thanking me for all of my good words. It has to be thousands of them. Because Africa is a gigantic continent with all these different countries where people can go to experience that culture, which isn't bad, really. It's just different. It's not bad, it's not good, right? It's just different. But yeah, this is some type of issue that the other side, the Sino-Soviets, found, was sensitive and divisive, and so that's why they are over-focused on it. But yeah, a lot of people, they don't let themselves get caught up in these things, and good for them. There's good people on both sides, but that doesn't mean there isn't better ways of doing things, and letting people do things the better way is really what good people do, not just passive, misguided, cowardly people. So do make that distinction going forward. But yeah, I'm working on a screenplay called The Fools of the Devil, but realize that our immoral authorities at this time don't think it's proper enough to get billing because that would be counter their aims. So, sorry, can't have good things in bad places or bad times thanks to bad people, ain't that so? But yeah, this is no invitation for any kind of conspiracy theory. Is the like UFO people to write me in with their reptilian space laser stuff? Because what if Rockwell and Oswald were flip spooks? What do you think? Plausible? Probably. If Johnson was flipped, then probably Wilson. Are we entering an adult conversation? Could it have happened? What about today? What's happening at the three-letter agencies? Have they all failed their original purpose? I don't know. Maybe they're keeping the world safe for democracy, but maybe they aren't. Maybe they're just doing that part-time. Like, post-COVID, coming into the office 5% of the time, collecting a paycheck, send out an email, are you still there? Pulse check, don't write back. Kind of flip situation. Has that ever happened before? I don't know. Someone would have to go back in the archives if anything like that happened on either side of the pond. But yeah, speculation doesn't really get us anywhere. But bad fruits, bad people, implausible, plausible stories. It can happen in political, worldly circles. I mean, what happened to Nero? What happened to Crassus? Somebody let me know. Which is why I don't really like to get involved in worldly things, because what's the payoff in being smart? Is it more agitation? Is it accusations? Is it finger pointing? Is it blame? I mean, my political program is a total restart, like total reset, like not doing things like have been done up until now, and having the people that let this happen, this culture that let this happen, retire itself too. Does that mean I'm a bad person? I mean, I just hope it happens. I'm not the one that's going to make it happen. Maybe it'll take a tidal wave to do it. Like there's an earthquake and all the coasts get wiped out, and then somebody who digs up a time capsule finds this and does it. Maybe not. Samsara has a way of going its own way, regardless. So. But yeah, bad people, they will get the results of their bad karma. Like I said, it's automatic. Now, talking about bad people is really hard to not say bad words when you're talking about bad people, but that's really not my intention. The intention is, by talking about it, to give people some distance so that they can repent. It's not an accusation. The people I just mentioned, they're dead already. Okay? They're examples of what not to do, not how to act, and their organizations are implicated in their behavior, which also involves an organized crime element. Let's not forget Jack Ruby, that guy. So if these things are still in play, to a certain extent, what does that mean? Does that mean we were sold a bill of goods by people who were too cool for school and had, moralizing, moralistic, virtue signaling argumentations that finally turned out to be malarkey? Could it have happened? My goodness, what a surprise. But we don't have to keep going, living in that same nightmare, do we? When people get discredited, it's a good thing. So what do you do from there? How do you go from there? Well, you learn the lessons and you pull the plug. on the things that went wrong. You do an autopsy. That's what you do. So is that bad? Am I using bad words? Am I making karmic mistakes? I don't think so. A pathologist that describes gangrene as not being a bad person. A social pathologist is not being a bad person. It's clinical. It's dispassionate. It's neutral. Some people could say, well, you're just sour mad because your life was rolling by these things. Well, not really. To the extent that I engaged with them, yeah, I did have some negative karma associated with that, but that was just by getting angry about all different types of terrible things. But yeah, people, like I said, they look at traffic, they slow down for traffic accidents. So how far am I going to engage in self-blame and distract myself from, that's a terrible thing. It's terrible for the people that were in the accident. Can I say that? Is that not allowed? Is that too edgy for people? What are they protecting at this point? What is there to modicalo, or coddle? What people, so reputations are so self-important that they can't be disgraced by disgraceful developments, such as the belief in Wall Street, and look at their investments and where they took the money, and then look at the causality of that. Oh, it's just a moneymaker. Well, no, there's all different types of implication, which is why before there was regulatory oversight. Yeah, we don't take money from criminals and hostile third parties. They thought that away. They're like, oh, no. Who's against that? No, we're against them. That's what they did. They pocketed the money. They brokered these forces. They're now engaging in alternative history and suppressing and attacking people that just want to live a normal, decent lives. They're attacking civil society, attacking true academia, true religion, anything. So people that talk back against that, they're bad people. No, they're not. That's what they say. So we're in a Pravda age again, neo-Pravda, neo-barbarianism, neo-capitalism, whatever that means. All these banks should go away. Tomorrow they should be shut down. And the people arrested that work for them. They engaged in illicit activities. There's a law that's written, and then they get the causality based on that. And they're little brokers too. And extend the timeline back, 100 years, 120 years, if you want to. And then we don't have an oligarchy anymore. Is that a bad thing? Somebody let me know. I don't think so. Now, like I said, nothing need terrible happen to them. They can get a haircut and go away, and we can do things differently. Or it can be a jamboree, but that would be based on their dumb actions, dumb overreactions, or continued bad behavior, and that has nothing to do with reformatory forces, does it? Oh, why did that mass murderer decide to barricade himself in a house and have a shootout with the police? Well, it was his decision. It's his fault, okay? It's not the police's fault. It's not good people's fault. It's not our culture's fault. It's not the founding fathers' fault. It's not George Washington's fault. It's not Santa Claus's fault. It's their fault. Okay. It's their fault when bad things happen to them for a change. And that's going to happen regardless. Like I said, metaphysically, they're done. They're never coming back to this realm, as my hypothesis. But as far as shortening their influence in Jambujita, I think that people couldn't dispute that wouldn't be a good thing. But some people do. But what are they thinking? It's like the irony-proof classes talking about privilege. Like we gotta worry about privilege. They're the privileged party. It's projection. Everything they do is projections. Maybe their flipped psychologist told them that they have to work out these issues by playing a roidist charlatan and browbeating people to give themselves some moral justification for their botched psychology. Nobody knows. Nobody should care. Like I said, people should start carrying Polaroids. Just take them out, take a Polaroid when they do it. They're completely self-unaware. Except for the self-aware LARPers that, are sadists. That's what they get off on. Tricking people. But the 80% doesn't matter. Useful idiots, dummies, parrots, take the Polaroids. That's what we're dealing with. But anyway, returning to the point. Returning to the point. I always like putting in those segues. Is the other day when I was picking up litter, the thought came into my mind. You do not overcome evil with evil, you overcome evil with good. And that's also passive evil, or again, carelessness can lead to evil results. If you look at it that way, just careless people with no regard for their environment. Foolish people that we can have compassion and pity on, and also not necessarily ascribe malicious motives to, that we are removing their bad karma. And in a way, removing our own bad karma, and also we're overcoming evil with good. That's great. Really, stay there. You're not really engaging with evil. You're just overcoming it. And just feel that moment. Feel the reality as reality shifts in the favor of good. And it's just goodness. It started out good. It stayed good. And it remains good. But changing forms and conditions in the next 5 minutes, there could be another bad accident or a bad mistake. But in the next 10 minutes, or maybe tomorrow, you'll be there again. And then changing forms and conditions, the good overcomes the evil. And you can see that on a small micro environmental scale. And you can scale it up to the universe, as below, so above, as above, so below. These are the principles that we embody. The living principle of good and the reality of it, the reality-changing catalyst of it. That blows people's minds. Like also these scientists, everyone was like, well, if you take a doomerist perspective, all this technology is leading to all these bad things. But look at all the scientists that have caused immense amounts of positive karma. That electricity, look at all the good it's been used for. It would have otherwise been a dark hole. All of a sudden, or the battery makers, you flip a switch, and that hole becomes a little disco. You have music in a hole with light, and it's warm too, and it's amazing. It's a miracle. That goodness has been diverted to a microenvironment, and they were just so generous. And they also had faith that the good would prevail over evil. But they also knew that some of it would be used for evil. But they didn't get too caught up in the details. They just focused on generosity. And that immense amount of generosity trickled down. It did. Look at it. It's real. The microenvironment. It's proof. It's reality. Good has triumphed over evil on a small scale at the point of contact. Has it not? Have you not experienced a situation like that? Where's your gratitude, fool? Not just for the moment, but for all of the contributors to that goodness. Many of them who have sacrificed their lives for it. Many, too many to count, worked their entire lives for it. But you're focusing on this and that bad thing because you're distracted. Refine your mind. Let goodness prevail. And expand your concept of the good. It's not just, well, that was good last Monday. No, it's again and again and again and again and again, reinventing it again and again and again. Doesn't matter last Monday. It's this Monday that counts. It's this Monday that you're in. But sometimes we can't make it happen. We have to let it happen. We have to let our minds change. We have to let that thing go. And that's how it's done. It's not really done because we do it. It's done through us because we let it. Rediscover these nuances within yourself. Again and again and again and again. That's what goodness is. Now, on the one hand, yes, of course, we don't want to be naive, but we also don't want to be preoccupied with the dastardly and the destructive and the disturbing and the despicable. We want to limit that. We want to compartmentalize that. We don't want to deny that, right? It does exist. We can go into that, but we can also get out of that. We can take a shower and renew ourselves. We're not that same person we were a half hour ago. We're renewed. Renew your mind. Renew your practice. Renew your perspective of this dimension. If you thought it was unfortunate, it's not. It just takes time to realize that sometimes, especially if the negative impact of certain events have really, 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 really impacted you on a fundamental level. It's just going to take a little bit of time. Yes, if half of your face was blown off, it's going to take some time to heal. And you're not really going to be the same, but it doesn't need to define your life. That was not the purpose of your life. That was just a bump in the road. It wasn't half your face, it was your arm, it was your leg, it was your relationship, it was your job, it was your expectations, it was fill in the blank, your variable. It's not important. It's just thinking that makes it so. It's more important than the saints' variables. Is that your conceit? Is that what self demands you do, is see things just that way? Did you go to the cross? Your sufferings are important. Is that right? Where is your comparison? What type of comparisons are you making? Are you engaging in first world problems? What about the mother who's crying her eyes out because her child just died right now, compared to your problems? There's a lot going out there happening in Jambujita right now. Believe it. Give yourself some distance from these psychological kilesas right now. And don't question it. Don't rationalize it. Don't explain it to yourself why you're doing it. Just like a dog does not explain to itself when it shakes itself rigorously after it was splashed with water. It just does it. Let that process unfold. Let it try you out. Return to that warmth, that refuge of your 1 meter monastery. Someone wrote in and was like, "Can you talk about Marx again? It's so illuminating." Thank you. Well, look, Marx is probably one of my least favorite topics. I might have to start limiting what questions I respond to and which ones I do. But yeah, it's probably most fruitful to get into his personality and his personality complexes. Him essentially being an outsider with a sort of a messianic God complex, but that is really nothing special. The more fascinating thing is, why did it, i.e. his ideology, find fertile ground in that time? That's really what's the most important thing to consider. And this is when we get back to the Industrial Revolution and all of the social and psychological damage that it caused in the pursuit of materialist aims. Essentially, it became, or Western zones became, de facto godless because their environments were godless. These were children of agricultural communities that were enticed into the city, that became uprooted from their culture, their history, and were slaving away day and night, right? 6, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and living in substandard housing. And their work environments were hellish, their living environments were hellish, and their psychology was hellish. And along comes a guy who wants to, overthrow that system or blame, right? Start blaming people, blaming the owners, blaming the religion, blaming the values, and we already see that there's like a modern kind of phenomenon there happening. You have a bunch of unhappy, mistreated people, and then what do? Well, then they start engaging in blaming. They want to get revenge, right? This is just a normal kind of human phenomenon. It's an animal phenomenon. You take a dog, right? You beat it every day. That dog, if it gets a chance to bite you, it will. That dog is ready to fly off the handle at the slightest provocation. So think of that in Western zones, millions of people that are essentially that way. And then along comes someone who's like, all right, well, look, these people are at fault, these people are at fault, these people are at fault. We're going to do things differently. Yeah, it's very appealing, very appealing. But yeah, the equivalent of letting rabid dogs run around isn't really a great thing, is it? So all these people started getting mauled, the whole, the factories fell apart. It didn't lead to the utopian outcome that was promised. It led to a centralization of rabid dog handlers. And yeah, the times were pretty bad. Okay, but what we need to do is look to the transition. So they were coming from more or less, I won't say idyllic kind of agrarian existences, because, right, the romantic period was sort of a reflection on like going back into the past kind of delusionality, where they idealized agrarian communities because they had already lost that. And they were trying to find some solace in the past. And they were frightened of the future, and they were dissatisfied with the present. Which is also not a very healthy psychological situation to be in, right? It's essentially some form of escapism. Sentimentality kills people, right? Those sweet delusions do kill people. You know, agrarian life isn't all it's cut out to be. Okay, you have a plot of land you have to toil on. And sometimes there's good years, sometimes there's bad years. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. And you're living with a bunch of kids, right? A bunch of animals. It's a lot of work, right? But you did have certain things, right? You had a man in the house, right? Most likely who wasn't letting, craziness reign, but some men probably weren't the best, right? And so it was sort of hit or miss. Like I was really surprised when traveling through the world at how limited many farming families are. Like, they don't know nothing about nothing except farming. They didn't hear any news, they didn't read any books. Now, some of them did, but many of them didn't. It's a very low level of existence, and it's also questionable how much of a lineage it has in prehistoric communities. For example, in Sumeria, many times human beings organized themselves into cities just for the sake of the division of labor, because it's a pretty grueling existence, and not everybody does it well. The professor who knows ancient history in 5 languages, why should he be milking a cow if somebody else can do it better but doesn't know how to read? Okay, we could say both people are okay, they're both doing something valuable, but the one is allowed to specialize in an area that, again, doesn't necessarily have a direct benefit for the people around him, but might have a benefit for the world. Like, if somebody were to know, maybe even an industrialist, that this professor was starving to death, he might send him a care package or two, realizing how valuable that person is, whereas more or less anybody can milk a cow if they're trained to do it. But of course, having milk, it's nice, right? Milk, then you got butter, right? Then you got cheeses. It depends on the level of specialization, tradition, so on and so forth. There's really no thing that cannot be specialized or cultivated. But be that as it may, society changed, it experienced radical change, and a lot of people were not happy with how it turned out. And then the people, again, these factory owners and whatnot, just like today, these people in the financial industry, these materialist monsters, really have these conceits that they're better than everyone else because they benefit to a greater degree than everyone else. Oftentimes at the expense of everyone else when they start engaging in wealth guarding strategies and oligarchic political practices and so on and so forth. So that's basically it. It's right. It's a systematic form of blaming that doesn't really address the issues, but did serve as a vehicle for rabid dog trainers that have a lot of gimmicks, just like dog trainers do, and they're sort of still in play. It didn't stop with him. It's been all the techniques dealing with people who are alienated from their cultures and peoples and environments can be manipulated into being cogs in such systems. Essentially politicizing everything. Like in a company, there's no room for politics. In culture, there's really no room for politics. But these people politicize everything. How about this? Relationships? They politicize relationships. They politicize everything. Everything's power, politics, up, down, zero sum. And the people that get ahead are very maniacal, Machiavellian, sociopathic, and deranged. So it's not a better system. And the people who practice it, they are going straight into the hell realms. Not just after this life, they're already in the hell realms, especially when they're engaging in blame. But essentially, people who are acting inappropriately and are inappropriate for the positions that they usurp, that's sort of what it devolved into. Oh no, being a judge is political, so I'm going to be a judge, but you're a criminal. You don't have any ethics or values, or your decisions are crap. Well, it doesn't matter. Their decisions would have been crap because they would have thrown me in jail. You see? Round and round they go. So you just have to think of humanity as just like agricultural products in a way. You'll have some good crops, and you'll have some bad crops, and you'll have some funguses, and you'll have some scientists that come up with solutions to that. You have good practitioners that generally get better results, and you have bad ones that generally get worse results. And these results are not material, they're primarily spiritual, because above and beyond subsistence is really not important in spiritual terms. So subsistence with, right, let's say basic medical treatment and basics as far as having peace and quiet to a certain extent, I mean within limits. Nothing here is perfect, right? It really is better if you can adopt strategies like better insulation or whatnot if you want to have less suffering of a physical kind, including noise pollution. Look at the quadruple paned windows mankind has developed. That you could live next to an airport and not realize it. Isn't that a marvelous invention? And there's an equivalence on the spiritual level. You can be around absolutely, unbelievably toxic and misguided people. And yeah, at least within your 1 meter monastery, they need not bother you. Now, when you step out of your abode, you realize, there's a lot of noise, a lot of dust, and a lot of samsaric activity, but that's not surprising, is it? This is not a perfect place. Now, I don't recommend people going or living in extreme places or conditions. It's not really the middle path, but there are strategies that can work. Not just strategies, tactics and strategies that work in the short and long term. But that doesn't mean they're always easy or always accessible or always realizable. But you can see that more in terms of playful experimentation than this is a terrible place, these are terrible people, and it doesn't make any sense, because that's sort of the lunacy that a lot of post-industrial bipeds can get themselves into. And it's understandable. Look, I have a lot of sympathy for people that are mistreated on a regular basis. I do. I get it. Like, you don't have to tell me, working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for nothing in a ghetto. I get it. Like, don't accuse me of being out to lunch on that one. Now, there are also other theories for people that can fall into that. It could be a karmic thing. Like, you did something in your past lives that led to that. Your debt has not been paid. And so this might be more of a hellish existence. And the Buddha talks about millions of lives that he had. And he said he had a lot of lives that didn't go very well for him. He also did not get enlightened. One of them, he was captured by bandits and chopped up. Does that sound nice to you? Doesn't sound so nice to me. So, if we are coming back to this place, if we haven't been practicing well, it could be that we're born into unfavorable conditions. Now, if we were practicing well, some people are born into favorable conditions. So there's no point in feeling guilty about that. I'm a bad person, I'm a millionaire. That's ridiculous. Although it does depend on how you got it. If you were born into it, you could say, well, that's good karma, unless it leads to your downfall. Pick up a drug habit that you can afford that other people can't and become a hungry ghost. That's not a great situation for you, is it? So it's all about changing forms and conditions too. All these people with this mad money now that will probably in the near future be penniless because they're not really doing anything good for society or the economy or anything like that. Well, changing forms and conditions. Will they lose their minds? Will they lose their little egos? Will it be a very painful process for them? Or will they land light as a feather because they already detached themselves from material things or self-perceptions based on material things because they knew it was ridiculous before they lost it? Are they going to be someone like that? Time will tell. Some say, oh, of course I'll be like that. And then it happens. And then they're suffering. They're in the equivalent of a chamber being burnt alive for days on end with self-accusations, blamings of others. But yeah, doesn't really matter. It's everyone pays the price in samsara one way or another. And the causality of your thoughts, yeah. Desire this, you're going to suffer a lot. Desire that, going to suffer a lot. Don't like this, going to suffer a lot. Don't want this, going to suffer a lot. Unnecessarily. But there's still going to be a unavoidable part of the suffering. There's an unavoidable part of the suffering in the practice. The first you have to suffer to develop that or develop the idea that having a practice is very beneficial. You get rained on days on end, you realize how valuable an umbrella is, or good rain gear. You really cherish it at some point, and then you have it at the ready. You do have it with you when it rains. Whereas other people, they didn't. Why? Well, they didn't get that lesson, that hard lesson. They didn't nearly freeze to death on multiple occasions. But you did. But now you don't. You see how wonderful changing forms and conditions can be when one adopts a right practice, right understanding, right view about Jambuchita and what it can offer and what it can't, and what adversity really can be, such as a mechanism for transformation and not just a bad thing. Like gasoline is pretty terrible, right? Outside of an engine or a system that uses it. Like, don't drink it. Don't get it on your hands. Don't light a cigarette around it. But where it's supposed to be, when it's there, it can do miraculous things. It can transport you through a mountain range in comfort. Try to do that on foot with all the gear that you have in it. Get yourself a donkey and try to do it that way. But yeah, gasoline itself, outside of those systems, is not all that good, is it? Adversity is not all that good in our lives until we start using it for transformation. Even if it's just perspectional. Like, I thought I was going to live forever, then I got sick. Now I cherish every moment that I'm healthy. Before, I didn't do that. I was looking here, there. I was thinking about doing this. I was going to do that. Why couldn't I have this? Why couldn't I have that? I have this girlfriend. Why can't I have 5 others that are way better? Thinking like that. Patuginistic thinking. But now, I have nothing but my health and gratitude, and it's way better than before. And what was the transformational ingredient? Adversity, suffering, pain, terror, disappointment, disillusionment, disavowalment. Not just disavowalment of others in the pursuits, but others disavowing me or mine. Ran away with anything they could take, right? Just changed their minds instantly. Saw you like a sack of not even potatoes, just something, garbage, a hindrance. But where was your concept of self then? Did you share that opinion, or did you find new insight into the nature of this existence, changing forms and conditions? The refinement process. Gold looks like dirt when you find it. When you dig it out of the ground, a lot of times it just looks like rocks, dirt, clumps of dirt. But that refinement process, that's not an easy process. That's burning. That's removing of impurities. It's melting. It's reforging. It's recasting. Then melting again. Then banging. Then grinding. Then pressing. Then twisting. Only then does it look like pure gold. In life, it's the same way. Insight is the same way. Practice is the same way. But yeah, to return to Marx again, see, I'm talking about gold, and see people, there's the metaphorical gold, and then there's the materialist gold, and it leads me back to Marx. Yeah, Marx was a materialist, which is a really bad thing to be. It's a very discredited and reprehensible philosophy that attracts the most vulgar of pseudo-intellectuals in a zero-sum game that they use to justify the most horrible of things. So it was sort of like a change from one form of mistreatment to another. And the results were not good for the people or countries that adopt it or are adopting it in its new and more pernicious forms. So you could classify it as a terrorist movement, and the practitioners of it as terrorists or misguided people, if you want to see it in a less confrontational way. And so, there's all different types of discredited philosophies. That people believe, like I said, Earth is flat. No, it's not. You believe that, you're wrong. Okay, there is that. And people who are wrong are not good. And why are they not good? Because they don't lead to good outcomes. If you're wrong about basic things, there's really, it's very, very rare to be right about other things. Not to say that that's not possible, but generally you're talking about someone with a degraded personality. And again, it's understandable how people get into these preconditions to be amenable or fertile ground for such malignant philosophies, but again, there's not all too much understanding we need to have for that, because a lot of people, even though they experience all those terrible things, they didn't adopt that philosophy, not when it came out in its new shiny package, and not today when it's been thoroughly discredited, and yet people still carry on as if it hasn't been with a straight face because of the windfall that they get by being political in places where it's inappropriate to be political. But with denial, right, Darbo, they carry on as if the other side was irrelevant. So don't go that way, and don't consider people respectable that did. On the other hand, some of their criticism is valid. For example, it's not the case that there's just Marxism or capitalism. There's really capitalists and their materialist conceits are also wrong. Okay, so you got two wrongs, and everybody's looking for the right, but they're not getting it. So that's sort of where we can move forward, is figuring out a system that is better than the one we have now, which, and the system of the future should not be Marxist and should not be capitalist. Merit should be rewarded to a limit, and there really shouldn't be the sky is the limit kind of thing, because people need to reduce their expectations about this dimension. This dimension is not a playground. It's not a place where things will go perfectly well. It's a place where you can practice reducing your defilements and kilesas, but within parameters that allow that practice to be more successful than what we've experienced up until now, without the massive misdirections that both sides of the materialist camp are guilty of. Someone wrote in recently and said, I picked up 1984 and read it, but man, was that a depressing book. Thank you. Yeah, I think that should be noted, that the wrong takeaway from the book is doomerism. The right thing to look at are the psychological techniques that are used by totalitarian regimes, and also fake opposition, a subversion of wooby men and booby men, and all of those things. So it's more informative as far as tactics of totalitarianism go, but the conclusion that resistance is futile, i.e., the non-Hollywood ending, is not correct, in my opinion. It's just not. What these ultimately totalitarians are asinine. They do bad things and they get bad results for themselves in this life and the lives to come, and bad results for everyone else. By monopolizing power, they create bad conditions, and we see that. You can see it in business. There's one supplier, he used machinations, he bought out all the competition. There's one supplier, and that's it. And then when you call, they don't even answer the phone, or whatever they do. They say they're going to deliver, they don't. They jack the prices. Do they care? No, go to someone else if you don't want to buy from me. Well, there's no one else. So how do pathogenistic, Machiavellian, worldly people act when they have total control? Is it good? No. So that's all it means, is worsening social conditions, financial conditions. And these things are cyclical. Even in the Soviet Union, which most people will agree was the furthest that humanity got on the totalitarian road, what ended up happening? Those big fat cats at the top ended up getting old, dying off, and new people came up through the ranks, and we're like, what the hell are we doing here? Right? It's a battle of diminishing returns. Now that problem has not gone away, but ultimately there's only so far you can push people. See, this is, again, a million creatures. You can make the zoo that people are living in really bad, but at some basic level, you can't push it much further. And I think in the case of 1984, Orwell takes some literary liberties in making it much worse in a futuristic kind of scenario, which isn't really helpful. It's like watching a horror movie. People can get really scared. It's like whatever, the killer jumps out of a bush, then gets killed, but then comes back from the dead. Like, you can think up scenarios that make things even more frightening, even as they become more unrealistic. So even under totalitarian conditions, many people lived quote-unquote normal lives, pretty much, that weren't as terrible as described in his novel. Now, people can make the case, well, technology's getting, better, that they could possibly do it, but I would still say there's a limit. There's the limit of the lifespan of the despot. That's something to remember, that we're dealing with malignant narcissists. We're not necessarily dealing with a system. Because a system of malignant narcissists is doomed to failure. It's just, again, they create havoc during their lifetimes. So, but yeah, these can be 40-year swings, right? These can be a family dynasty kind of thing that extends it. Look at North Korea. So political systems can get hijacked, and then they can somewhat perpetuate themselves longer, but at some point the chickens come home to roost. And despots don't really end well. That's sort of an illusion. So if you're living in a terrible time, some people would say this is for hybrid reasons. It's very toxic. It's very insane. Yeah, well, limit your exposure to it. You know, Pittsburgh, when the steel mills were pretty much untouchable, had terrible environmental conditions. So the air was terrible. The rivers were poisoned. Well, they were so greedy, they outsourced the operation to another totalitarian regime that's now on a warpath. But when they build back, it's going to probably be under more modern conditions because it has to be. So the environment won't be as trashed. And the environment didn't get trashed for those 20 years or so that they were doing their dumb materialist machinations someplace else. And now you could restart under better conditions, right? Without the original monsters that made those decisions that led to all of that bad causality. So you can see these things as cyclical. You can see these things as changing forms of conditions, yeah. And don't see, and this is what I think Orwell sort of succumbed to, was moral-mindedness. Don't over-exaggerate bad things. Not mentally, right? Don't psych yourself out. There's always the statement that you can come back to, nay, it's not certain, not certain. And keep yourself from, again, awfulizing bad things or jumping on tendencies, getting ahead of these things mentally. Oh, I'm so smart, I can predict this, the future's going to be awful. That's not talent, that's just neurosis. If you're not a materialist, right, if you're following the 5 precepts, there's only so much that purgatory can do to you. And it's a fraction of a fraction of what happens to bad people psychologically and otherwise. Yeah, okay, so the whole legal system is corrupt and not functioning properly. Well, you might have some bad luck and get thrown in jail, but you also might not. They might be too busy doing something else, and because you don't care and they don't care, nothing happens. So what is worrying about a corrupt legal system going to do for you? Now, if somebody comes to you, how do you do it differently? You can propose a completely new system. Say, all right, well, all those people, the class of people that created this problem, we know how to identify them now. And before there was 100,000 of them, we might only need, 100 of them now. And with just having 100, it's a lot easier to keep an eye on them and also limit whatever payout they might get because they're not involved directly in cases. They're sort of involved in the programming of systems. So it's not like they're going to get an individual payout based on throwing an individual case, which is sort of what the current system allows for. Now, not in every case. Look, some people, God bless them, doing good things in a bad system. But the system itself that allows that type of possibility is like a ship that allows the possibility of water getting through the hull. You just need to redesign, and then the problem's solved. But yeah, it might not be solved in the first prototype entirely. You need to do a review and revisionary engineering kind of process. And then all of a sudden, 100,000 legal cases are decided equitably in that year instead of them going the other way. And then each year that creates the good causality instead of the bad causality. But of course, in a global system, we're dealing with competing systems. So the enemies of our system don't want that happening. And if they can influence it so that it's sabotaged instead of working right, such as we've seen in hybrid times, that's exactly the type of horses that they're going to back and fund, like these mayors of cities or mismanagers or decline managers, right? They funded the whole PMC class of decline managers and ideologues because it was the real goal was to degrade and subvert the system according to covert arrangements. It was just the public persona that was claiming not to be doing that. But who needs a cynical political system like that? Nobody. So, hey, I'm a McDonald's manager, but the people come in and there's crap on the floor and you order a cheeseburger, they charge you double and give you something else instead. It doesn't matter what stories they have or why. Those conditions are there. It doesn't matter. You just fired them. You replace them. And if the other people are acting the same way, you fire them too. And so on and so forth. I don't know when this disconnect between results and action took place, but whoever doesn't have the political will to do that is defunct too. Fire them too. Fire, like I said, the whole system can be redone at this point. And anyone that was involved in the old one could get a criminal charge at this point. So what they thought they were getting into turned out to be something else too. They're in prison for life because they got charged with all the crimes that took place during their tenure, and they thought they were just going to profit and walk away with the loot. Just surprising, right? So, yeah, surprises happen to bad people, but good people, it's usually surprises to the upsides. And good people that have a realistic expectation of this dimension, such as old age, sickness, and death as a baseline, they're not all that surprised. And they don't have crazy expectations or desires or aversions because they meticulously and dedicatedly and diligently and patiently cultivate those out of their minds, hearts, lives, spaces, narratives, doings and not doings. So yeah, don't go crazy with the ending. I think the ending was unnecessarily pessimistic. And also, for that reason, misleading.